just a bit. We do welcome in the big guy. Let's do this off the top. Let's let everybody know, because what we do is we talk about the hoops. We'll get to the NFL free agency, a couple of news stories we got to report out of the NFL. But what we do is we talk college hoops, we talk the NBA, and we bet. And not only bet the games that are going on during the show, games that started before the show with the in-game betting. So, Dustin, why don't you lay out what's coming up here?
Well, right before we hit the air, Texas got a big win in overtime over Texas A&M. So they were bubble-licious going into this whole thing. They may be on the right side of things after that victory. Coming up, though, we've got some big ones about to start. Baylor and Texas Tech. Texas Tech is laying 6.5 in this one in the Big 12. 141.5 is your total. Baylor beat Kansas State yesterday, 70-56 off a bye. This is a Baylor team that is on the bubble right now, 1-10 against quad one teams so far this year. This is a big step up for them. They need a win like this over a team like the Red Raiders that are definitely going to the big dance. I ended up laying the number with Texas Tech. I just don't think the Bears can hang when they get up to this level, Patrick. Your total is 141.5 in this one.
All right, what else is coming up?
Mississippi State and Missouri in the SEC. This number moved a little bit. Missouri's laying 3.5. Total's 156.5. It got down to 3, back up to 3.5. Ken Pom does have this a 3-point win for Missouri. Missouri won the regular season matchup pretty big, 88-61. Mississippi State does not shoot the three well, 278th in the country. That's going to be an issue against Missouri, who likes to get up and go and can score quickly. They shoot 37% from three, have guys who can hit from long range. This is a tough matchup for Mississippi State.
All right, right now, San Diego State beating Boise State, Mountain West, two teams, whether you want to call them bubble or a little outside of it, 47-45, San Diego State. Remember the magical run a couple of years ago. The Mountain West is a very confusing conference and league this year. We'll see what the committee does with them. 9:06 to play. San Diego State leads Boise State by 2. What else, Dustin, is coming up?
Well, there's some good late games tonight. Some teams on the bubble, some teams that are desperate. I think a big one later on at 9 p.m. Eastern, USC, who broke our hearts last night. We had Rutgers, double freaking overtime in the Big Ten tournament.
But by the way, Rutgers had that game.
Yep.
Stupid ass. Rutgers had that game, and then USC forced the overtime, and then goes double overtime. But I'm just down. Now, listen, I know that the coach, Peichel, is a friend of Mad Dog Sports Radio, and we appreciate all of his efforts. But money be green, and he had me bitter last night. I'll get over it, but he had me bitter last night.
Yeah, I mean, how do you look like that when you have 2 top 10 NBA picks on your college roster? I mean, how often does that happen? You have 2 guys who are going to be NBA players, and you get eliminated by a down at USC team. But USC's got a tough matchup today. No rest. They played that extra couple frames last night, and Purdue is just elite from beyond the arc, 9th in the nation, also 28th from 2. And USC is really bad at defending the paint. They're inefficient defensively, and the Boilermakers just have a great backcourt. Kaufman, Wren, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, they drain it from the outside, 47.5% from 3. Lay that number with Purdue.
Now, because of Steve Torrey's obsession with Indiana, the Hoosiers have kind of become a Channels team. Whether you love Torrey or you're like Mike in the OC, you crush him. I like to pull for my guy because he gets so invested in Indiana today. They were in it and then got blown away late by Oregon. Altman's just, a hell of a coach, and Woodson's got to go. He's going to go after the year, 72-59. So a couple things here. One, Xavier did lose. So that is going to help Stevie out there with the Xavier loss. Xavier was near the bubble, but Steve is not happy because he said Texas winning hurt IU, and now UNC gets a gift wrap win tomorrow with the Duke injuries. I mean, yeah, he's all good. North Carolina had 1 quad win all year. I don't care if Cooper Flagg's out, and I know there's other injuries as well, but I don't care if they're out. Duke should still be able to beat North Carolina. They stink.
No, when they played, last Saturday, Cooper Flagg got into foul trouble, and North Carolina made a little bit of a run there at the end of the first half, but in no way, shape, or form were they winning. And that game was played in North Carolina in Chapel Hill. So I don't think Cooper Flagg being out makes that big of a difference. Now, the other injury to the rebounder, that is probably bigger for Duke at this point, but I still think Duke is significantly better, and North Carolina can't hang with good teams. Just look at the schedule all season long. When they have to step up in opponents, they get crushed.
We should talk about the Cooper Flag injury. I don't think it's going to be an issue. He did come back out on the court after being wheeled off in the wheelchair. Of course, the game was inconsequential to Duke. They were going to be a 1 seed regardless of what happened in that matchup. They got pushed today and then pulled away. But the big story is #1 overall draft pick, Cooper Flag. And listen, if he were to go down because of what happened today, that would be quite depressing for Duke fans and Duke backers. Now, as far as the futures market, that's what you like to look at as far as the severity of the injury. He sprained his ankle and the 78-70 win over Georgia Tech. He's not going to play the rest of the way in the conference tournament. That would be my suspect. Well, probably not going to play in the semis. Maybe they get to the finals. Maybe he gives it a go. It depends on how much that matters to them. The actual future market, Dustin, they were 3.5 to 1 Duke to win a national championship. I think it adjusted to like 380. Yeah, maybe a couple shops 4 to 1. So really not much of an adjustment there.
Yeah, I'm seeing plus 360. And by the way, you cannot play him in the rest of the ACC tournament. I heard Dog say
I'd be surprised if they did play him.
I'm curious what you think about this. I heard Dog say earlier today, Flag will be very disappointed not playing that historic ACC tournament. It's a big deal. Do we think the current players in college basketball think that these conference tournaments are a big deal? Do you think people will remember?
That? Dog said that?
Yeah.
What did he say? He said Flag would be
disappointed to miss playing in that historic ACC tournament.
Yeah. He don't care. He doesn't care about the ACC tournament. That he does not care about that. They care about the big dance. Selection Sunday coming up on Sunday. Iowa, by the way, first half hanging in there with Illinois. Illinois is a fascinating team because they're starting to get healthy at the right time, and they dominate down low. Iowa, I took them +6 in the first half just because a very physical matchup yesterday against Ohio State. They probably wear down as this game wears on. They're not a tournament team, one of the few from the Big Ten that isn't. But we're hoping they hang within the number here in the first half.
So I was playing for Fran McCaffrey's job, it feels like, although maybe that's inevitable. He's going to get let go. Illinois is frustrating, man. I loved Illinois early in the year. They have the 2 Lithuanian kids. They have some size. They can play inside out. But I can't get the way they got smoked on a neutral at Madison Square like a month ago by Duke. I can't get it out of my head. And they've really stumbled over the last month. But you mentioned it. Some of it was illness. Some of it was injuries. If they do play to their potential, they're a dangerous out. I just don't know if Brad Underwood's going to get them to do that when it matters here.
Well, the last 3 for Illinois, they beat Iowa by 20. They beat Michigan by 20 and Purdue by 8. So that's a team starting to peak at the right time. Your bet on Texas Tech, I think he laid 6.5. They are up 10 early Big 12 conference tournament over Baylor. Obviously, Baylor needs a win there. Tech is in, and I know some sharp bettors that do like Tech in the tournament as well. We shall see. Very well coached, of course. SMU Clemson coming up in a little bit. Oklahoma, who did pick up the win yesterday against Georgia, pulled away late. It was an impressive game against Kentucky. I think a lot of points are going to be scored in that one.
Yeah, I like Oklahoma.
2 good offenses, 2 teams that shoot the 3. We just had 180 points scored and a buzzer beater in Norman not too long ago, 2 weeks ago. That's an intriguing game.
Yeah, so the number 6.5, Kentucky's laying it. Total's 160 and a hook. They both shoot 37% from 3. Kentucky won the regular season matchup by 1. KenPom has this 85-80 Kentucky. I mean, the Wildcats are much deeper when it comes to scoring. They got 6 guys in double figures. Kentucky's 6th best on offense, but OU 21st best. I think they hang. Oklahoma's on the bubble, and it's not like the best reason to back these teams, but I do think that they're hungrier. They need it more. I took 6.5 with Oklahoma. I think they absolutely hang with Kentucky in this one because Kentucky's locked in.
I mentioned it a little bit earlier, big guy, Big East. Xavier was up 10 at the break.
Yeah.
Marquette had a huge second half, so that might end Xavier. We shall see. Elsewhere, the game I wanted to mention, Northwestern Wisconsin. Oh, it was actually interesting. Speaking of Steve Torrey, his son went to Colorado. Colorado hung within the 18.5, lost by just 9 to Houston, which is interesting.
Yeah, Houston
Forget
is
about your text. Focus on me. Focus on me, big guy. Everyone, you're not getting fired. Bill likes you. It's
I don't
okay.
I don't know anything about Colorado. I know about Houston though. And Houston is known for being intense. And if Houston's letting a team like Colorado hang with them, I don't know if I have long-term concerns about the Cougs, but I just say that's out of character for what they normally do this time of year. Normally they dominate, they decimate, and they move on.
BYU, this is one we should discuss. BYU beat Iowa State earlier today. BYU with that 3-point shooting might end up being a problem.
Yeah,
I love
no.
this team. 96-92, a million points scored in this Big 12 matchup.
So I have a couple thoughts on BYU just because there's two teams playing later who both lost to BYU and they got massive downgrades for it, Kansas and Arizona. And I don't think either's all that good, if I'm being honest. I think Kansas is overrated and not Kansas. Arizona's overrated. Kansas just isn't good. But we hammered them for losing to BYU. All of a sudden, I look back at those two losses and I'm like, maybe they're not so bad because BYU's turning it on. They play that analytics game of just shoot threes all over the place. And Iowa State's weird. Iowa State was really good about a month and a half ago, and they have not been the same team. They got smoked by Kansas State at home about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Totally out of character for them. They're normally a great home team. So I have a lot of questions about Iowa State as well. But BYU, they may be peaking at the right time here.
All right, that sets the table for college hoops and the conference tournaments here. VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio. Time for, and I'll get to the solemn news, which went down today. Quickly, an on-air show meeting. I believe this was Ryan that texted us. Ryan, you have to understand something. Dustin cannot handle work texts during a segment.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's why, and he absolutely just lost his mind. He saw the number. He didn't know if it was coming from management. Yeah. And then once that happens, it recalibrates the big guy's brain and he starts getting lost. I saw it happen in real time. He's been begging to be a co-host for years and he's literally reading his text messages. Big guy, what's up?
Well, I'm a single mother. I am washing hands and drying myself. I'm not going to make the other dishwasher joke this time, but I am still also the producer of the show. So when I get a text from our technical director in the middle of a segment, my thought is something is wrong. So I see his name pop up and I'm like, oh no, something's wrong. Now, Ryan was just being helpful. And by the way, I put this on the rundown. I don't know if you noticed this, but I put ways to watch on the rundown at the top. YouTube.com/VSiN Live, Rumble.com/C/VSiN Live, Twitch.tv/VSiN_live, and Kick.com/VSiN Live. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, and Kick now.
All right. I guess we could just throw all that information up in our Discord, the Family Bets on Discord, which is completely free, our show's community. So if you'd like to get involved there, we welcome you. It's a fun time of the year, people. It doesn't get much better in March. We're loaded today with guests as well. We've got Josh Applebomb, Jonathan Von Tobel, and Tom Cassali from CBS Sports. I don't know if I said dude's name right, but
Cassali.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter until I actually introduce him, and then I'll act like I read his stuff. Speaking of reading, I must. Speaking of reading, I must, and this is solemn. This is a Mad Dog Sports Radio alum, and that is John Feinstein, one of the legendary sports writers, one of the legendary writers of our generation. He has passed, obviously, Washington Post for many, many years. I don't know if everybody knows this, but John Feinstein, originally from Long Island, kind of known as a Washington guy because he's been at the Post forever. But he passed away today, and he was just 69 years old. His brother Robert said the legendary sports commentator passed away at his brother's home in McLean, Virginia today. I know Feinstein had gone through a lot recently with a divorce and stuff like this. Feinstein had a column on Michigan State's coach Tom Izzo published on the Washington Post website just this morning. The 23-time New York Times bestselling author released his milestone 50th book, people. Think about just the dedication to a craft and the work ethic. Feinstein, I know him a little bit. He also wasn't a guy that flew, so he drove to every site that he covered, whether it be football, college football, or college hoops. He was always doing that, but just a prolific worker. He just published, I mentioned, his 50th book. It's called The Ancient Eight, which is about Ivy League football, and that was just last year. So really, now if you think of, and I know Tori and I have bonded over this book in the past, his 1980 book, Season on the Brink, which chronicled the Indiana Hoosiers and their coach, Bob Knight, during their turbulent 85-86 season. One of the top-selling basketball books ever. It's one of the great books you're ever going to read. It was the original T. Like, if you like the concept of getting behind the scenes and understanding what goes into a program, and you have polarizing big characters, obviously, like Bob Knight, that's about as good as it gets. So really sad. And for a short period of time as well, John Feinstein was a host here on Mad Dog Sports Radio. So a solemn day. It's kind of ironic, the timing of his passing, because nobody loved college hoops and nobody covered college hoops better than John Feinstein. And of course, he passes away just a few days out of Selection Sunday. So rest in peace to John Feinstein, who we had a great conversation with. I believe, Dustin, it was during the pandemic, where, I'll put it this way, Feinstein could be surly. And if Tori's listening right now, he's probably grinning, because I'm sure while being Feinstein's program director, he had some run-ins. But that's really a compliment to Feinstein's personality. He was a person that was really intense about his craft. Obviously, you have to be if you're going to write 50 books. He was a guy that didn't suffer fools. He was also a person that was a straight shooter. So when we had him, I tend to, and I know people get annoyed with me, I tend to kiss guests' ass, and a lot of it is psychological, so I can get them to open up a little bit. And Dustin and I, when we got done with the conversation, we were pretty surprised with how much Feinstein gave us, frankly. And at the end, he was like, I really enjoyed the conversation. And we were like, is this John Feinstein? Usually he's like, click. So just the fact that we got him to chill, open up a little bit about his career. I believe he had a book coming out. No surprise. I mean, 50.
But he didn't come on to promote it. Like, we just stumbled on
we
it.
just promoted it for him. So, 50 books, 69 years old. He was writing a book a half a year in his career. It's crazy.
So there's some things I really admire about him, but remembering him, it was Sirius XM. I just started working in DC, where he's a legend, right? And he was also on 106.7 The Fan there. And I just remember being captivated by him going on with the Junkies in the morning, who I know you listen to, and telling these stories about going to this Chinese restaurant with Red Auerbach. And like, he was just such a brilliant storyteller. He'd hook you in. But the thing I really admired about him is every platform I ever heard that guy on, whether he was on with us, whether he was hosting his own show, whether he was on 106.7 as the guest, he was just always himself. And I kind of dug the curmudgeonly. I kind of dug that attitude that he had. He was very consistent across the board. And I really admired him just as someone in the sports media community.
Yeah, curmudgeon's a good descriptor. Authentic,
yes,
prolific, and he will be missed. John Feinstein passes away today at the age of 69. Okay. I'd be curious. I should text Tori. How long was he on? 6 months on Mad Dog Sports Radio in the middays? Maybe something like that? Maybe a full year?
Him and Bruce Murray. Then I remember he did some stuff for the College Station at some point, because I remember that during the New Orleans Final Four. So he was on Sirius for a little bit.
All right. So when we return, we do have, I have a take on the San Francisco 49ers. I think they're going to be awful next year. I also do believe the Browns made a mistake, not by letting Russell Wilson walk today without signing a contract after their meeting. I believe they made a mistake by extending Myles Garrett. Maybe the defensive player of his generation. We'll get into that. Also, rumors circulating about one of the best players in football potentially getting traded. And we'll get to your calls. 888-MAD-DOG-6, 888-623-3646. We're just getting started. It's VSiN Live. It's Mad Dog Sports Radio.
This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Meagher and Dustin Swedelson. spread all night long. This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Here's Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson.
Yeah, Mike Wilbon just said it best about Feinstein on PTI. They're paying tribute to the late sports writer John Feinstein, passed away today, unfortunately, at the age of 69. He said, quote, "He could be the most charming guy in the room and the guy you want to throw out of the room, but he was always a compelling figure." I think that's perfectly put by Wilbon. Tremendous job. A couple of things before we get into the NFL. One, so this is betting, people. I took 6 with Iowa in the first half. So it's 49-42, 14 seconds to play, Iowa's ball. All right, so 49-42, that's a 7-point difference. I got 6. Iowa holding for the last possession. They hit a 3 as time expired, 49-45 at the break. Cash it. Biatch.
You love to see it. Love to see it.
You absolutely do. As we do welcome you back, Dustin Swedelson. I'm Patrick Maher. We got the crew with us. And the crew can be found all over the place, as Ryan mentioned. You can find us, of course, YouTube at VSiN Live. We're on Twitch, Kick, and Rumble. So do what you want with that information, people. And also do what you want with this, because there's a lot of basketball to be bet from now until Selection Sunday. And people are making a lot of money with the paywall being down over at VSiN.com. So we've never done it. We're doing it through Selection Sunday. And we're getting some crazy good feedback. So you can jump over to VSiN.com/champ week. That's CHAMP week. Daily best bets through Selection Sunday. You get an email with all the bets. Exclusive betting splits from DraftKings and Circa. 24/7 video with full access to the VSiN Watch app. So again, don't miss out. There's no cost. There's no commitment. It's VSIN.com/champ week. Okay, we're going to get to a couple things as far as the NFL. Let me give you what happened today, and then we'll get to some of the dirt here. One, there's a new backup in Kansas City. It's Gardner Minshew. If that does anything for you, he's going to be the Chiefs' backup to Mahomes. Elsewhere, Mason Rudolph is headed back to the Steelers, where the Steelers are still looking for QB1, but they found their backup. Kenny Pickett earlier today said he's going to get a chance to be the Browns QB1. Good luck with that. What else? I know the Raiders agreed to a deal with running back Mostert, who did a good job with the Dolphins. Is there anything else? Jones with the Colts, he said he's grateful, and he's been told he's going to have an opportunity to compete for QB1 there with Anthony Richardson. Anything else you got for us as far as the free agency front?
Yeah, rumors are for Cooper Kupp. It's the Saints, the Jaguars, and the Seahawks. Jordan Schultz then added that there's at least 5 teams interested in Cooper Kupp. So it looks like Cooper Kupp will not be a free agent for very long here.
All right, so Cooper Kupp news there. I mentioned before we went to break, and we should get into this, an 888 Mad Dog 6, 888-623-3646. You can pull up the NFC West division odds for next year, because I believe the San Francisco 49ers are still favored. And that is perception over reality. And understand, just like the financial market, the betting market is perceptive. It's built on perception, and then the way it's bet, that drives the market. And the perception is, and a publicly bet team would be the San Francisco 49ers. The perception is they should win the division. The reality is there's no chance they win the division next year. They're blowing up the roster to prepare themselves to sign Brock Purdy. And as Dustin mentioned, he might get upwards of $50 million. They got rid of their best wide receiver, whatever you think of him. Injury prone, yes, but he is their best wide receiver in Debo. They got rid of Dre Greenlaw, Tre'Davious Ward, Hufanga, Juszczyk. Now the rumors are starting to swirl that they could potentially trade Christian McCaffrey. And I think it's a no-brainer. If you're going to take this route and you're going to set your team up around Brock Purdy, because that's what they're doing, they're clearing cap space so they can sign Purdy, and you're not in win now mode, you got a guy that's going to be 29 years old. Modern day running backs have kind of changed the perception, but essentially most of the time when a running back gets to 30, they fall off a cliff. And you're also talking about a guy in Christian McCaffrey that is constantly injured throughout his career. Outside of one season, been injured. I think you got to trade Christian McCaffrey with the way you're handling the roster construct here with the 49ers. I continue to be blown away. Again, they're favored. Do you have the numbers there, NFC West?
Yeah, they're pretty crazy. The Niners are your favorite at plus 120, the Rams plus 165, and then the Seahawks and Cardinals are both 7-1. But the idea of potentially having like 75, 80 million, whatever it is, tied up in McCaffrey and Purdy in a salary cap league, there's no chance you can fill out a roster good enough to win if you're so reliant on your running back in 2025 and you're paying that quarterback who needs a lot of help $50 million.
Do you agree with my assertion they should be looking to trade Christian McCaffrey?
Well, yeah, because you're selling high. Well, I guess as high as it can be, because he was Offensive Player of the Year 2 years ago, coming off an injury. But if a team's going to be acquiring him, it's because they're a contender. And you need to sell and get assets for him. Because, by the way, they did give up a lot to Carolina to get him. Recoup some of that, help you fill out the rest of this roster, get impactful pieces that are cheaper through the draft. Use McCaffrey to do that. Also, they found running backs last year. Jordan Mason ran for like 5 yards a carry. Isaac Guerendo ran for 5 yards a carry. Isn't that the Shanahan system? Isn't that their whole thing? We can run with Tatum Bell. We can turn anyone into a we ran with Alfred Morris. Why, if you're Kyle Shanahan and you know that you have a long history with this offense of finding ways to put running backs in good positions, would you waste so much of your money on Christian McCaffrey on top of having to pay the quarterback Brock Purdy, who you have to coach up too?
Yeah, the Shanahans can scheme up a run game with that zone run. Orlandis Gary is another name that comes to mind. So get rid of McCaffrey. Like you said, if you're kind of selling high, you're selling as high as possible because he's going to be 29 years old and obviously oft injured. And that brings me to Myles Garrett. I was thinking about it today. I just wrote in my notes, specific to nothing. I cannot believe, and again, you can say Myles Garrett is the defensive player of his generation, and I'm completely fine with that. He is a Hall of Famer, and he's still at the peak of his powers. But you mentioned a phrase earlier, sell high. What are the Cleveland Browns doing? It's a fine roster. It's probably not a Super Bowl roster with what's happening at the quarterback position, and Garrett didn't want to be there. You had to pay him more than anybody's ever been paid outside of a quarterback. He wanted to leave, and you could have held teams over the barrel. I mean, this was, at this point, for a defensive end, more than any player is ever going to get if he were to be traded. The concept that you extended him, look, put it this way. They've had Garrett, the Browns, at his peak powers, and they've won nothing. Why not retool, recoup a ton, and move forward? The Garrett thing blows me away.
Well, how far away are they? Do they believe that within the Myles Garrett window, they're competing for Super Bowls? Because if you believe you are, you're crazy because the Watson contract completely limits you from being able to do that at all. So the answer is obviously no. Therefore, you have to move Myles Garrett because you're getting maximum value. You could get as close to quarterback value for Myles Garrett as you could get for any player that's a non-quarterback ever. So you paid him the most as a non-quarterback, but his trade value was also that similar to a quarterback being on the market, which means you could have recouped first rounder, multiple second, third, something like that, and you can refill your entire roster that way. The Cleveland Browns are so far away from competing for a Super Bowl. I don't understand what keeping Myles Garrett does other than help maybe sell a few more season tickets. I don't get it.
Look to the market to see what Vegas thinks or the market thinks of the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, they're in a brutal division. The favorites for next year, the Baltimore Ravens, minus $1.30, odds-on favorite. Cincinnati is plus 215. The Steelers are 5-1, and the Browns are 30-1.
Okay, the Steelers don't have a quarterback, and they're 5-1, and the Browns are 30-1. They are 6 times larger in the odds market, and they literally have Mason Rudolph on the roster as QB1 right now.
It's an emotional look. Emotional decisions are hard. He's drafted there, defensive player of the year. I understand that, but selling high, you're never going to have an opportunity with his stock higher than it was going into this offseason. Myles Garrett, Cleveland should have sold. They decided to pay. The Bengals. So the Bengals are plus 215. The Bengals are in a precarious spot. I think pound for pound, they have the best quarterback in football. You can fight me on it. I understand. I'm in the minority. But he's at least in the conversation in Joe Burrow. Well, Jamar Chase wants a new deal, and they're going to get a deal done. He just went Triple Crown on him, receptions, touchdowns, yards, and he's coming off that, wants a new deal. T. Higgins, who he could hold out, that's still on the table. They said they don't want to trade him. Remember, they franchised him, but Higgins was pissed that he got franchised for the second straight year. He could eventually hold out, so they've got a decision there. And then they gave Trey Hendrickson permission to seek a trade. The problem is, and he led the NFL in sacks last year with 17.5, and he had 17.5 sacks the previous year. So that's 35 sacks over 2 years. That's freaking ridiculous. Here's the problem. The Bengals want a first rounder for Hendrickson and many more assets. So going back to your point about Myles Garrett, if he could potentially, Hendrickson, who's great, but he's not Myles Garrett, if he could potentially recoup a first rounder and more assets, that even lends more to what we were just saying about Myles Garrett and what he could have recouped.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to take less than they're asking for Hendrickson, but wouldn't you trade T. Higgins? I know he's awesome. I know he's a big body, but you mentioned it. They have a game changer at quarterback. Like Joe Burrow can create another T. Higgins. You can find someone and he'll have Chase opposite him. I know it's kind of a shady thing to do, to franchise tag and trade a player, especially a wide receiver like T. Higgins. But if I'm Cincinnati, that's one move I'm making. I'm trading Hendrickson and I'm trading T. Higgins because, one, I have a quarterback who can help create that. And two, I can then take that money I invested in Hendrickson and spread it out on that offensive line, spread it out on that defense, and kind of fix things.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. But they do have decisions because Chase is going to get paid. He's going to eat up a ton of that cap.
A lot of it.
T. Higgins, what they end up doing with him, I think I would trade him. I would agree with you. And Hendrickson, who they just can't afford to pay if they're going to pay Chase and others, they're allowing him to seek a trade, so they're trying to get value back for him. We were having an interesting, in 888 Mad Dog 6, 888-623-3646. We'll get you caught up on what's happening in these conference tournaments as far as the college hoops, maybe find some in-game opportunities as well. We were having a conversation earlier today, and Dustin and I were joking. You know, the one thing that you care about as a listener is the quarterback position. Like, if I came on here and I started talking about free agency and what teams were doing, like the Chicago Bears, completely rebuilding their offensive front, I guess from a gambling perspective, it matters that they're going to be able to protect Caleb Williams. From a Mad Dog Sports Radio perspective, it's clickbait, meaning click, you'll hang up, you'll turn off the channel. The only thing that matters, sex sells in the quarterback position is sexy. But we were joking yesterday when I kind of went on a rant about the quarterback position. It's fascinating. The dearth of talent is one thing, but the concept of one team's trash is another team's treasure continues to blow me away. We talked about the Steelers who don't have a quarterback that didn't want Fields, but the Jets are throwing a party because they got Fields. Trash to treasure. Russell Wilson, who the Steelers still don't have a quarterback. They don't want to re-up with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson went to Cleveland today to interview. Cleveland's thinking trash potentially to treasure. The Jets are going to absorb like $49 million just to get Rodgers the hell of away from their organization, and teams are debating whether or not to sign him. Trash, treasure. The Seahawks didn't want to extend Geno Smith. The Raiders can't stop throwing social media parties for acquiring Geno Smith. Trash, treasure. Minnesota won 15 games with Sam Darnold last year. They've got a quarterback whisperer. They didn't even franchise him. They didn't want him. Seattle, who didn't want what Raiders wanted, they decided they wanted Darnold. Trash, treasure. Daniel Jones, who the Giants didn't want, then Minnesota had an opportunity to use him as a bridge. They didn't want him. The Colts were like, we'll take him. Trash, treasure. Like, it's a revolving door of just, hey, we could do something with that, what you consider to be trash. It's like going to the Goodwill, trying to find a quarterback right now.
Part of it's what you go through, though, right? It's part of it's what the teams have gone through, and that they realize how bad it is on one side, that they start talking themselves into things that may not be real on the other side. Like, you and I both are intrigued by Justin Fields in New York, but I think we're both aware that the likelihood of him becoming a franchise quarterback and getting a Brock Purdy future $50 million deal are slim to none. which makes Brock Purdy getting a $50 million deal even more insane when you compare him to some of the other guys who've gotten paid recently. But the irony around the league is, I think if we went through each team and we like had a heart-to-heart with them, do you feel good? Do you feel great? Or do you feel poorly about your quarterback situation? There's a few that feel great. There's a couple that feel good, and most of them do not feel good about what's happening right now under center. Yet, we all care. We all talk ourselves into all these quarterbacks because we think that they can become something in the right situation, in the right locker room, with the right coach. But the reality is a lot of these guys are who they are.
But this is particularly why, when we were talking about Stafford, I kept on saying, if you're a serious organization, you're going to do – now, he wasn't leaving. That's the one thing behind the scenes here in Los Angeles. Stafford and his family wanted to stay here. They want to retire here. They're not leaving. He's 37 years old. He's got kids. He's got a wife. They weren't leaving here. So they were using the other teams as leverage. But still, if you were a serious organization, the Giants attempt, even though it didn't make a ton of sense just based on their situation. There were other, Pittsburgh should have been in the mix.
Oh, yeah.
The Giants, the Vikings should have been in the mix. Cleveland should have been in the mix. Like, if you were a serious organization, to your point, Stafford completely cleans that up for the next 3 years. That's just factual. Because then you look at somebody like a Rodgers. Now, I actually believe, I think you might, whether you want to consider it to be saved that he's not going to go to the Giants, or you want to tank, so maybe you want him to go to the Giants. I think he's going to have his choice. And I think it's going to come down between the Steelers and the Vikings. I'm starting to have a sinking suspicion that the Vikings are going to be in the mix.
I can't get over it. I think the Vikings are such a perfect fit for him. One, the coach. He's getting schemed up by Kevin O'Connell. If Kevin O'Connell can do what he just did with Sam Darnold, he's the last bastion of hope for Aaron Rodgers to have whatever's left of his talent squeezed out of him. So I love that situation. 2, he knows the North well. 3, he gets to play indoors. The dude's 40. Let him play indoors, not deal with the elements for his home games. And then, oh, by the way, he gets to throw to Justin Jefferson. He gets to throw to Addison and Hawkinson. And he doesn't have to do too much because that defense is going to be legit. The Minnesota Vikings make so much more sense to me than the Pittsburgh Steelers because I still have a lot of questions about Pittsburgh's offensive line. I have questions about how the Metcalf-Pickens things will work. I think it should. But I don't know if Rodgers at this point in his career, if he doesn't have an elite offensive line, is able to make the throws that they want a quarterback to make with a guy of the speed of DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I think Rodgers, if given the opportunity, will pick the Vikings. I think he, like you said, I think he'd prefer playing indoors. I probably loves the talent there with Minnesota. And you mentioned the coach. Now, another one, speaking of Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson, who played obviously with the Steelers last year. So he left the Browns facility today without a deal. And you know where he's headed tomorrow? He's headed to the Giants.
Yeah.
So the Giants, their obsession with having a vet and moving up to draft Cam Ward is real. Here's the problem with that. The Titans are taking Cam Ward. The Titans are going to take Cam Ward. So everything that the Giants, their plan was Stafford. That fell apart. Then they flipped, and obviously it was well known. Everybody that's close to the team reported they wanted Cam Ward and wanted to trade up, but they wanted a big name bridge, whether it be Rodgers, whomever, to build that, to be that stanchion in between to Cam Ward. And now it looks like they're going to try to get Russell Wilson. But the problem is, I think the Titans have decided they're going to stick at one. And you look at the odds, the Titans, it looks like they're drafting 1 overall, and they need a quarterback. Will Levis ain't the answer.
No, good. And by the way, good for them. You only have so many opportunities to have the number 1 pick in the draft. He's far and away the best quarterback. Right now, I'm looking at the DraftKings odds. Ward to go number 1 is minus 295. So you have to bet almost $300 to win 100 back. When it comes to the number 1 pick, team-wise, Titans are the heavy favorite, minus 250. So from a Giants perspective, though, you might as well just fire Brian Daboll and Joe Shane right now if that's how it plays out. If the Titans keep that pick and you're stuck with Russell Wilson, fire everyone and just start the search now. get a good scouting report on who you want to take over, figure out of what organization you're trying to copy, and start planning that now, because there is a 0% chance with Russell Wilson they do anything that will save those two in the unemployment situation. At least with Aaron Rodgers, you have some hope. You have some hope that there's like this little bit that the MVP is still in there. Russell Wilson's been bad for a while, and he doesn't do anything to take chances with the football. He is too safe. He wants to cook, but he doesn't have the arm strength anymore. You just might as well wipe everyone out before the season starts if you're going to sign Russell Wilson. I'm sorry. It's a horrible sign.
I mean, Russell Wilson, he wants to cook, but he's like your boy, single and 47 with an air fryer. but do not get it twisted. I can whip up some great stuff in that air fryer. I've been getting creative.
Oh, so you're saying you're better with the air fryer than Brian Daboll is with calling plays? I wouldn't argue with it.
Brian Daboll looks like, even when he got skinny, he still looked like he was eating. But and I will say this. What's fascinating about the Giants is Mara had the perfect excuse to fire those donks, because it was filmed when he was like, you guys seem like you don't know what you're doing, and then still held on to him after the offseason. Like, still after a terrible season held on to him. Makes no sense.
Why don't people want to accept the Giants are a dysfunctional organization? Because a functional organization would have fired those guys instead of letting them operate an entire offseason to save themselves and put their jobs first over the franchise. And that's what we have here. We have two guys, a GM and a head coach now, who are going to put what they need to keep their employment for another year ahead of the New York Giants. And that comes down to ownership. The owner's got to make a tough decision. And you have to understand where your team is at. You're at a bit of a crossroads here. You've been irrelevant for a really long time. Had Eli Manning not gone on the two most random heaters in the history of the NFL, this organization would have done nothing for like 30 years. So I think for John Mara, I put this all on him. You should have wiped those two out, started fresh, because a new GM and head coach would have been given the opportunity here to slow roll this. They wouldn't have forced a pick if there wasn't a quarterback to be taken at number 3. Instead, these two donks are probably going to reach for Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart at number 3 overall.
All right, we're going to get you updated on Texas Tech Baylor coming back. Also, an NBA star has been shut down for the rest of the season. We'll tell you who that is. And I'll just admit right now, I think I might have even done something new for me. I am literally sweating a soccer bet in Honduras right now.
I don't even know where Honduras is.
I don't know where Honduras is. If you gave me a map right now, and again, I've been into the Boricuas, Latinas, but I don't even know if Honduras is Latin.
Could we name one country that borders Honduras off the top of our head?
Ryan said it's in Central America.
That doesn't help.
That doesn't track.
Yeah, I got nothing.
That doesn't track for me.
I know north, I know south, don't know central.
Well, but bottom line is I'm betting Honduras, and it's CD Victoria versus CD Marathon, and I got to get over 2.5 goals. So we'll just continue to sweat Honduran football, a.k.a. Honduran soccer, and I have started to limit my South American countries as far as the badunkadunk down. Your man is on a mission. I'm going to move to South America. They've got Wi-Fi, but I'm doing it based on the scenery. I'm out on Brazil. That's what I'm saying. I've decided to move on from Brazil. I don't like the Brazilian butt lifts. We've got conference tournaments and college hoops with the updates and an NBA star shut down. Next, VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio.
This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson. all night long. This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Here's Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson.
See my guy, J.A., Josh Applebomb, getting ready for his hit. Author, professional bettor, podcaster, host. He does it all. The men's college basketball conference tournaments are underway, and SiriusXM has you covered as we bring you 21 conference championship games throughout the week. College Sports Radio Channel 84 is your hardwood headquarters throughout the month of March, or just search college basketball on the SiriusXM app. Okay, speaking of conference tournaments, let's get you caught up there. I do know there's a strong request for some clarification here. So if you're joining us here, VSiN Live, Dustin Swedelson, I'm Patrick Maher on YouTube. If you're joining us on Twitch, if you're joining us on Rumble or Kick, whatever that is, welcome. People want to know what my requirements are for when I move to South America, and even if they don't, let me give them to you. Women, weather, cartel. Those are the big three.
But
Women, hold on, let me finish. Women, weather, cartel. The women, this is a big thing. Your boy likes Latinas, okay? And I like natural Latinas. That's one. Weather, I prefer be on a coast. I'm a big ocean guy. And then cartel, this simply means best chance of not being killed by one.
Oh, okay.
And I also have here, as far as a requirement, I am moving to South America, people. And you can get in the chat and let us know. It has to be a country that accepts basic white guys freely. Because I don't know. Sometimes you walk in with this type of face into South America, and they might be looking at you up and down. You understand what I'm saying? Now, if a cartel wants to take me on, I'm good with it. I just don't want to get killed.
Okay. So you want limited cartel. I was a little concerned at first that you were saying you wanted to join a cartel, and I unfortunately would have had to told you you're not going to make it. I don't think they accept you in there.
I'll change my last name to Escobar. I'll change my last name to Escobar so fast it'll make you flip if they don't kill me. I'm not pretending to be holier than thou. I'm cool with living in a place that has cartels. I just don't want to get killed by a cartel. Women, weather, cartel, basic white guy acceptance. Let's get to the conference tournament updates. Big guy, what do we have? I got Illinois in the Big Ten up 72-60 over Iowa, so starting to pull away there.
So Texas Tech at the break is up 52-39 on Baylor. In the ACC, we've got Louisville trailing Stanford. Stanford up 33-30 on Louisville. And then very early in the SEC, Mississippi State has a 3-point lead up 8-5 on Missouri in the second round of the SEC tournament. Those are the big ones going on right now.
And Cooper Flag, he looks like Paul Pierce when he pooped his pants.
That's what I thought was happening.
Get rolled out on that wheelchair today. I think he's going to be fine. The ACC player and freshman of the year, Cooper Flag. The pride up near Josh Applebomb, the pride of Maine. I said Vermont the other day. What's the diff?
Oh, I thought it was New Hampshire.
Update. We got a goal in Honduras. Josh Applebomb, you're going to be proud of your boy. I'm betting Honduran soccer right now. We got a goal. And I was in the Discord yesterday handing out freaking winners and CONCACAF last night like candy. The family bets. Applebomb next.
Covering the spread all night long. This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio.
All right, guys.
and Dustin Swedelson.
It is VSiN Live, and the action's nuts. By the way, I did have some tea. I'm going out with my boy Vince later, so if I'm a little hype right now, that's the reason. But let's go Honduras soccer. We've got basketball all over the place, in-game, halftime betting. The big guy, Dustin Swedelson. And you can check out Dustin's picks for free right now over at VSiN, vsin.com/champweek. You can also read Josh Applebomb and check out all of his plays. There's no cost, no commitment through Selection Sunday, vsin.com/champweek. Give it a try. I think you're going to like it. And we do welcome in good friend, author, better, great man, husband, dog owner, shout to Meadow, podcast host. All Systems Go is the podcast for my man, Josh Applebomb. And it's really exciting because he did write the Everything Guide to Sports Betting, which you can find on Amazon. But we're really excited about the book that's coming out in August, and you can pre-order it now on Amazon. NFL Sharp Betting Playbook: How to Analyze the Market, Go Contrarian, and Bet Like a Data-Driven Wise Guy. I just got it's. You can find the title and the cover at Josh_Insights. That's the first time I saw it. I'm showing it on YouTube, and it looks fresh, Mr. Applebomb. It's a good job by you.
Patrick, Dustin, great to be with you. And yeah, I can't take too much credit on that. I actually got super lucky. I teamed up with Triumph Books, who really focuses on sports books in particular. And they were like, hey, what do you want to do with the cover? And they're really cool. They don't just like pick it for you and say, hey, you wrote the thing, but we'll make a cover that you don't like or have no input. But no, they're like, what would you, visualize your cover? What would you want it to be? And I said, I would love for it to kind of look like you're at a sports book. You got all the different TVs in front of you. You got the feel of the sweat. To me, that's the most exciting part of sports betting. When you make a bet, you're sweating it. That little moment when you don't know if it's going to win or lose, Patrick or Dustin, that's when I feel most alive. So I said, make it look like the reader is walking into the sports book, and they put out a great cover that really, I think, nailed it.
Can we pull back the curtain a little? I'm fascinated by the idea of just writing a book. The fact that you're writing your second book is wild. Is the book actually done right now? Like, how long, what's the timeline on when the book is done versus when it comes out? Like, tell me how this process started and how it got going.
Yeah. So Dustin, it is a long process. I don't want to make it seem like it's easy, but I think if you do a subject that you're passionate about, it makes it a lot easier. So I've been writing this for like 3 years, and it wasn't like my first book when, I worked with Simon & Schuster. I had deadlines. I needed 20,000 words by March 1st. By March 8th, I needed 25,000, 30, like all these deadlines you had to meet. So I pretty much just wrote the thing at my own kind of pace. I went through multiple seasons with it. But to answer your question, Dustin, it's done. I've written the whole thing. Now I'm working with basically my copy editor. So it's this great woman named Katie, and she basically sends me. We have the same doc that we share the whole book. She highlights things that maybe she says we should change or, typos here. So basically it's like it's written. We're going over it with a fine-tooth comb, and then it's going to hit the printer, I think, in May to be ready to go for August. So it's a long process, but shout out to Triumph Books. It's been great working with them.
Yep, ahead of the football season, going to be awesome. Josh, you got great notes for the betting splits and spread versus money line. But let's talk about betting these conference tournaments to start here, as we got a lot of action throughout the program. North Carolina picked up a dub today. We got Illinois on TV right now, up 81-71, 10 over Iowa. Plenty of action with Baylor and Texas Tech. But let's talk about the difference between betting conference tournaments and then the big dance.
Yeah, so I think it's a great question here, Patrick. And obviously it's no longer regular season. You're not going to get any of these like small matchups, even though you do have some of these smaller conferences, their tournaments that are in full swing. But I would really lean into kind of just what got you here. Like, I don't think at this point in the season, if you've been betting all year long, you don't really want to completely change your process. But I think you want to lean into things that maybe work for you during the regular season and not reinvent the wheel. Like, so for me, I'm looking at trying to bet against the public. These conference tournaments are kind of like, the second level up from the regular season, not quite at the March Madness status when we're going to get the bracket and they're super heavily bet. But these conference tournament games are more heavily bet than usual. So think about looking toward betting against the public, looking at bet splits, which we'll get to in a second. I want to hit on. The other thing is the time of the games, Patrick. Like, you have all day sweats. Like, I love that. It's great for the bettor, but I would just make sure if you're betting these games, like pay attention to late movement. Like there were a bunch of games today that were like 11 a.m., 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, noon. These games might sneak up on you. Like look at the late movement. If it's a noon game, 11:50 to 11:59. If you see kind of that late move breaking one way or the other, that can really be meaningful. So again, pay attention to the splits, lean into contrarian betting. And I think just, try to make the most of it. Don't go crazy with betting every single one of them, but be disciplined, pick your spots, and hopefully you can get some winners.
So before we get into the splits, how do you like to navigate all the different conferences? Because it's a wide array, right? It's small leagues, it's big leagues, it's different regions. So when you're trying to find the sharp movement, where are you mostly looking to this time of year?
So I kind of just do every single game, Dustin. Like I'll look at the live odds page we talked about. Odds Logic does a great job of providing a live odds page. You can test it out. Shameless plug here, oddslogic.com/Josh123. You can get a 7-day free trial and half off your first month. Whole point being, though, is I go in chronological order, Dustin, and I really pay in particular attention to some of these smaller conferences. Like you get to the SEC tournament, the Big 10, the Big 12, ACC, like they're going to be very heavily bet. But you get to some of these really small conferences, I think that's where you can really make some money. Like if you're looking at, the MAC, the MEAC, America East, a lot of these different ones, even though the public might be overlooking these matchups, if you can locate, like you can throw away contrarian, there's not going to be as heavily bet as the SEC tournament. But if you see a line move, that's really meaningful to me, especially like if it's a short number, like you open -1 and you get up to -2, and it's a very small game no one's really paying attention to. I think those can be just as valuable. So I would say kind of like whether it's a small conference or big conference, don't discriminate. Even if, like, for instance, Peacock, I had to buy Peacock today, guys. It was only $1 trial, but I had to watch that Marquette game. So is it on TV or not? These are the little things you want to pay attention to because you got to think through, is this a big public game? Is this a game that's hard to find? Is it an ESPN Plus game? These are the factors I think you want to at least be aware of going into the sweat.
Josh Applebomb, VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio. We'll talk about using the betting splits, but just as an aside, let's talk NFL for a second and your Patriots. Vrabel and the Patriots have been busy. Josh, do you like what they've done so far in free agency?
So I do like what they've done, Patrick. Robert Kraft finally opened his wallet. They've been lowest in cap spending for going on 10, 15 years, or like last 10 years or so. They finally paid a guy more than Tom Brady. This is insane. Did you guys know that Milton Williams, who was amazing in the Super Bowl, gave him like a 4-year contract for $100 million, even though it's not quite, it's more like a 2-year deal for like 50, but he's getting like $26 million technically a year. That's the first time that they've paid anyone more than Tom Brady. Like he set the record for the Patriots, which just goes to show you Kraft's got to spend some money. Again, I think it's important to put that, just to say it as a Patriots fan, they finally opened the wallet and paid for some guys. I like the moves. Vrabel is a defensive guy. Carlton Davis looks hopefully pretty good opposite of Christian Gonzalez, Robert Spillane, Harold Landry. I like the moves, but I'm worried, Patrick. The offense still has a lot of holes. What are you going to do at left tackle? Will Campbell, 4th overall. They really don't have many wide receivers. They signed Morgan Moses, who's like 34, and he's actually pretty decent. I like what they've done, but they got to start drafting better. If you continually go to free agency, I mean, that just tells you you're not drafting guys that you can then pay and retain.
But also, David Andrews let go today. He was kind of the heartbeat of the O-line, so it goes with everything you're saying. But you have a quarterback, and now there's like legit NFL players on this roster. For years, Josh, the last 3 years, you were not watching real NFL players. You were watching like XFL players that got a lot of snaps in the NFL. You have to feel like from a competitive standpoint, game by game, against the spread, maybe win total, there's going to be opportunities on your boys this year.
I think so too. And again, I'm thinking about the win total. We haven't gotten them yet, but it was basically 4.5 last year. It opened 5.5, got down to 4.5, and even the under still hit. They won 4 games. What do you guys think? Maybe like 6.5, 7.5. What's
big guy said yesterday he thinks that they could make the leap to the postseason. He thinks that the Patriots
possible.
By the way, they just added on defense Levon Chason, who came on strong actually.
Oh, yeah.
With Vegas, the former first-round draft pick. So they added another piece just a couple of hours ago on defense. But the big guy was talking Patriots maybe sniffing the postseason.
I think, hey, a wild card, you sneak in. I mean, think about it. Bills, they're still at the top of the heap. The Jets, though, Justin Fields, I mean, they could be a dumpster fire once again. Miami, if Tua's healthy, they're good. If he gets a concussion, they're going to struggle. I think the East, the AFC East, you're not going to be Buffalo, but can you be second best? Can you approach 8 wins? I think you need probably 9 wins to make the postseason. Could be doable. And I think just coaching guys, Josh McDaniels, a competent offensive coordinator, Vrabel, a guy who will, command the room. Drod Mayo was a good guy, but really in over his head. You have some good coaches here. You got some good players. There's reason for optimism in New England.
I love it. Draft a lineman, draft a receiver, your first 2 picks. You get Drake May, a weapon out there. You got an opportunity. I agree the division stinks. But I'm wondering, Josh, from your perspective, because you mentioned the draft, and it's a weird situation from a betting perspective, the way it's manipulated and these numbers move so much. Do you find that you have a lot of draft bets placed by the time the draft comes around? Or is that something from your sharp perspective where you don't mess around with it too much?
I actually love the draft, Dustin. I think there's a lot of money to be made. And again, you gotta, it's a gift and a curse in a way, because the market moves quite a bit and the market moves a lot. Like I remember Derek Stevens of Circa, he had a hit on VSiN last year where he said, I hate booking the NFL draft because it's just very hard to predict. Numbers move based upon, Mel Kiper's mock draft coming out or Daniel Jeremiah's. So you can go from like a guy who's an over-under position of, 27.5 and it's all the way, down to like 23.5. So they move quite a bit. You're trying to get out ahead of them. But I think if you pay attention, you can really make a lot of money. Like you want to, or not a lot of money, but use it as like a supplementary kind of bankroll builder kind of thing. But I think it's important too to like try to be patient. Like you want to bet these right now. There's going to be a lot of movement between now and draft day. And even if you look at day draft movement, like I remember a couple of years ago, Derek Stingley Jr. of the Texans, like I think, what did he go?
Yeah.
2nd or 3rd overall? But like, I remember that day, Dustin, like he opened the day, I think he was like, I don't know, plus 1,000 to go 3rd overall. And by like the afternoon, he was like plus 500, plus 100. He flipped to like minus 200. If you can see those moves kind of as they're taking place and hit them before they become a minus number, to me, that's kind of the best way to bet the draft.
I'm sure you saw the news, our old partner, Michael Lombardi, probably saying, I told you so somewhere, because Mac Jones is a 49er.
Hey, he's pro ready, man. Mac Jones, he's a stud.
What up? What up? Josh Applebomb joining us, of course, VSiN host, author, bettor. Let's do this. Oh, how about the Celtics? So the Thunder last night got plus 130 on a money line. Play it all day. The Thunder sweep the season series against your Celts. A lot of issues there right now. And I don't want to make light of it, but Porzingis got a bug, and you can't figure out what the virus is. And they did get beat by the Thunder, the Thunder are a better team. By the way, did you see your Celtics took 22 3-point attempts in the first quarter? That's insane.
Patrick, it's ridiculous, and they will not change. Like, they asked Joe Mazzulla after the game, like, hey, did you maybe take too many threes? Like, I think the NBA record is like 70. They took like 60 something. It's getting absurd.
Yesterday in the game.
Yeah, it's insane. And like, I get it. When you're knocking down your threes, no one can beat the Celtics. But like, do you have to be so one-dimensional? What if the threes aren't hitting? Like, the Celtics are very stat-driven, very analytics-driven, and they just say keep jacking them up, keep shooting it. Eventually, they're going to come through. Even when you're 1 for 20, keep shooting, because basically the law of averages will benefit you. But Mazzulla after the game is like, yeah, we got good shots. They just didn't fall. And like, I hate that as a coach perspective. Like, if you're an analyst, okay, I get that. But like, if the shots aren't falling, maybe you change it up a little bit. Maybe you go to the lane a little bit more. Maybe you run pick and roll. Like, the Celtics are, again, I can't really complain. They won the title last year, but I wonder if there's going to come a time in the playoffs, Patrick and Dustin, where like, they're just stubbornly jacking up threes and they're not hitting and they're not adjusting to their opponent. Like, you look at last night's game. I probably should have taken OKC. I have the Celtics over 58.5 win total. I told you guys this, and it's going to come right down to it. So I'm just rooting for them to win these games. But they opened like -4. They got down, I think, -3. That was a pretty clear OKC play. And man, SGA is super impressive. He is just, he's on another level, guys. So again, Celts, OKC, you would think the Celtics experience would win out. But OKC I'm scared of OKC as a Celtics fan.
I hear a lot of fear coming from your voice right now, Josh. And the Cleveland Cavaliers were not mentioned in that conversation. Do you not fear Cleveland in a potential Eastern Conference final as well?
I do fear Cleveland. I mean, at some point, their insane win-loss record, what are they, like 55-10, or like, I don't even know what it is, but it's crazy. You got to say to yourself, hey, like, let's just call a spade a spade. They're a really good team. They got something going. They got Donovan Mitchell, who can take over in a postseason game. They got their bigs are awesome. They're very well-rounded. We'll see. I think that could be a dogfight as well. I think all things, equal, Celtics are healthy. I do like them to get out of the East. But again, Porzingis has got an illness that, Boston's got the best doctors in the world, guys. They don't know what's going on. I hope he's like health-wise, I think he's okay. It's just like, can we figure that out? Holiday's a little bit older. Brown's been banged up. I still like the Celts, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as it was last year.
Josh Applebomb joining us. Okay, teaching moment. We were talking about giving away everything for free right now over at VSiN.com, and you can go VSiN.com/champweek to get that. And part of it is the bettors can get betting splits. We throw around terms constantly, and now we're on a huge platform like Mad Dog Sports Radio, and people are like, what are betting splits, dude? Slow down and tell us what it is, and this is an opportunity to explain exactly what it means when we say betting splits.
Yeah, and to your credit, Patrick, like, we're not just going to explain it. You can now go apply it. Like, as you mentioned, go to VSiN.com/champweek. Everything behind the VSiN paywall is available to you now until March 16th. So try it out. One big thing you get when you sign up for VSiN are the bet splits. So what are bet splits? Bet splits are basically the percentage of bets in dollars on every single game on the board. Percentage of bets in dollars or tickets, handle, whatever you want to call it, for the spread, for the total, for the money line, and you're going to get them for all sports. And what they're going to show you is one at DraftKings, where all the bets and dollars are for every game, as well as Circa. So you have both DraftKings, a very national public book. That's the book that I look at to bet splits wise, kind of bet against the public. And then Circa, great bet splits specifically from Las Vegas, where a lot of wise guys are at. So the whole point being is with bet splits, what I'm looking to do is basically one of two things. One, I want to bet against the public. And how do I do that? For example, you're betting college hoops right now. You're going to go to the spread column, SPD, and then it's going to say like spread bets or spread tickets. That's just the raw amount, percentage of tickets that have been placed on either side. So if I'm going to try to go contrarian and look at the spread for these college games or NBA, anytime I see a team getting like 70% of spread bets or more, that's a red flag. I want to go the other way. I want to take the team getting 30% of spread bets or less, because more often than not, the public's going to lose. Again, they're going to win every now and again. They're going to win big games. They're going to be hot. They had a really good year in the NFL this year. Like, that happens. But as a contrarian, you want to bet against the public. Look at the less than half the tickets, less than 40% of the tickets. But then the beauty of bet splits, Patrick and Dustin, is that you don't just get the ticket percentage, you get the money percentage. So you want to compare the tickets to the money for all the different bet types. So if I'm looking at a college game today, let's say there's a team that's getting 35% of spread bets, but 60% of the money. That gets me excited, because that tells me you're only getting a third of tickets, but nearly 2/3 of the dollars. So when you use them together, it can really answer the two most fundamental questions that I need to know. Where's the public? Where are the sharps? Then, of course, you want to look at the line movement. Ideally, the line move is kind of going toward that low bets, higher dollars team. So not every low bets, higher dollars sharp split will win, but you're going to make much more informed bets if you know the percentage of tickets and dollars on every game.
Let's apply it to a game you're betting tonight. And why don't you just explain? You're betting Kansas, Arizona tonight. Why don't you explain how you view that game through the betting splits?
Yeah, so this jumped out to me. I wrote this up for VSiN.com. It jumped out to me that from a bet split and a line move perspective, that Arizona is a play for me. So I moneylined Arizona. We can talk money line versus spread in a second. But they open as a very short favorite. So what I first do, Patrick, is start with the line move, because that's like the most important thing to me. The line move, unless it's an injury or, it's like an outdoor game, weather can play a role. As long as none of that is taking place, line moves are mostly driven by sharp bettors, respected bettors. The books will take in money from people that they respect and adjust the price. So the first thing I notice is Arizona tonight against Kansas, the Big Ten quarterfinals. Arizona opened -1.5. They're up to -2.5, -3. So right off the bat, line's going to Arizona. Now let's continue to dig a little bit. You go to the bet splits. Right now at Circa, Arizona's getting 57% of spread bets, 84% of spread dollars. So that looks good to me. We got the line move. We got basically half the tickets, but a ton of money. You look at the DraftKings spread bets, 60%. of tickets, but nearly 75% of money. So now we're checking off multiple boxes. But this is why I moneylined Arizona instead of laying the 2.5 or 3. Perfect example. Marquette today, guys. Did you see that ridiculous, meaningless 3-pointer at the end? You know, this is the Al Michaels, like it doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but it's meaningful to some. Whole point being is Marquette was up, what were they up? 5, meaningless 3 from Xavier. They win by 2. Why is that important? Because Marquette closed -2.5. So if you laid -2.5 with Marquette, you lost because of that ridiculous last second 3. You moneylined Marquette at around -140, you won the game. So always protect yourself. I always go moneyline short favorite over spread. Perfect example tonight, Arizona. I got Arizona on the money line. If they were to win by 1 or 2 and I laid the 2.5 or 3 and lost, I couldn't go to bed tonight. I would just be so upset. So money line, Arizona, great bet splits, good line move.
So real quick, I'm just wondering, like, what kind of disparity are you trying to target? Or does it just vary just game to game? I know the line movement matters, but when it comes to the betting splits, how big of a difference are you looking between the two numbers?
So my kind of like rudimentary, marker, Dustin, is 10%. Like I want at least 10% more money than bets. So if I'm getting 50% of bets, but 60% of money, okay, that's a starting point. That's a good thing. Anytime you see a team getting less money than bets, that's an automatic red flag. Like let's say a team is getting 70% of bets, but only 50% of the money. That tells you that, that team is popular with the betting public, but the public who's playing that team, they're betting $5, $10. These are small wagers that even though it's a vast majority ticket count, it's a low overall dollar account. So I joke around this on the All Systems Go pod. 4 words: low bets, higher dollars. That's basically what I'm looking for. I'm looking at the splits.
All right, so just quickly, Missouri jumped out to an early lead over Mississippi State, 28-20. We got a surprise, maybe a bit of a shocker here. Stanford's up 54-41.
What is going on?
With 13-12 to play in the second, so we'll continue to monitor that. 15 minutes to play in the second. Texas Tech leads Baylor 60-52, and Illinois about to close out Iowa up 11, 97-86, about 4 minutes to play there. So those are the games going on. You heard Josh mention Arizona and his breakdown there. Tremendous information. Before we say goodbye, most importantly, you heard my conversation about South America. Do you have a suggestion if your boy and when your boy ends up moving to South America as far as a country?
So I have suggestions, I have thoughts, I have comments. My first thing is, wherever you go, Patrick, first of all, I think it's a great idea. I would highly recommend you meet a Hispanic girl, because I married the most beautiful, amazing girl in the world. She's half Mexican, half Irish. So we're getting ready for, for St. Patty's Day. And then pretty soon we'll have Cinco de Mayo, Patrick. It's the best combination of human you can find.
Hey, that's a parlay.
That's a parlay. That's the only parlay that I'll ever bet, Patrick. But number 2, Brazil. I think you could have a great time in Brazil. I would also let people know, or fly under the radar, sports better. You got to give the cartel a little bit of juice, Patrick, on your big winnings on worldwide soccer and football. And you better call it football down there, not soccer. You better pay off the cartel. We don't want any like Ozark situations going on down there. And then lastly, I got to end with a UFO comment. Before you get down there, Patrick, I want you to Google Varginha UFO incident. It's Varginha, one of the most reputable and kind of scariest UFO situations of all time took place in Varginha, Brazil. There's a documentary on it. I would stay away from Varginha.
All right. Well, you started with listen, the literal reason I'm moving down there is for the women. And then everything else is secondary. So UFOs, cartels, all that.
That doesn't matter.
Down there for the ladies. All right. So yes, I will definitely be hooking up with a Latina/Hispanic, as you said. So thank you, John.
And Patrick, you better have Wi-Fi down there, because even if you go down there, you better still stay in the sports betting industry. You're sharp as a tack. I need you in my sports betting life and personal life. You better get Wi-Fi down there.
For sure. I'm guessing that they have Wi-Fi. I'm hoping.
It's a guess.
They have Wi-Fi.
It's a guess.
You understand what I'm saying? Josh Applebomb, VSiN betting analyst. You can read them every day. You can read them for free right now over at VSiN.com. All Systems Go is the podcast. And again, he's got the book coming out in August. You can find all the information at Josh_Insights on Twitter. Josh, you're the best. We'll talk to you next week. Good luck tonight.
Appreciate it, guys. Good luck.
And thanks for the knowledge about the UFOs. That's not going to play much into my decision, but I do appreciate it. We've got an upset brewing, of course, with Stanford and Louisville. We'll update you on that coming back. Tom Cassali is going to join us. Does a great job. CBS Sportsline handicapper coming up next. VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio.
This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson. Of the night's action. You're tuned in to VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Here's Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson.
Okay, VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio. We welcome you back. Conference tournaments, great time of the year. It's smack dab in the middle, March 13th. It doesn't get any better than this. And right now, Stanford, ACC, up 57-48 over Louisville. We'll discuss that game and more. I want to start with the ACC with our buddy Tom Cassali, CBS Sportsline handicapper. The Tom Cassali, Casale on Twitter, does a great job following the handicapping. Tom, thank you for joining. And we should start with the ACC and Cooper Flagg today. Get your reaction. A win over Georgia Tech, but of course, Cooper Flagg with the sprained ankle. And they take on North Carolina tomorrow. North Carolina dancing around that bubble, got a little bit of a break here because my assumption is Flagg isn't going to play. And the number right now, Tom, is Duke laying 7.5 tomorrow.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I was saying to someone earlier this week that in college basketball, I don't put a lot of stock in players. It's more about system. You look at a team like Missouri, right? Like they just have good college basketball players. They run a system. But I said there's the exceptions, right? Cooper Flagg being one of them. And then he went out and got hurt. He's so good that you're just not going to be the same without him. Listen, North Carolina's playing well. They've been blowing out pretty much everybody in the ACC, not named Duke. And when they played, they were up on Duke at the half. That was a 5-point game with a few minutes left. Then Duke kind of pulled away there at the end. I kind of like the way Carolina's playing. I don't love the number here because I think it's a big reaction without Flagg being. I want to see where this number goes overnight. I wonder if we get some Duke money coming in, but I think it's going to be a competitive game.
So, Tom, let's stay in the ACC. Patrick touched on it briefly. Stanford's up 4 right now on Louisville. They were catching 10.5 before this game started. We're still early in the second half. You can actually get a plus price, plus 1.5 on Louisville. Total's 150.5. How shocked are you that Stanford's beating Louisville right now? And what do you think about Louisville come NCAA tournament time?
Yeah, I just posted this in the Sportsline Discord. The ACC is awful. Like Louisville would be South Carolina in the SEC. They really would. It's just these teams aren't good. You got Duke, Clemson. Then I just think you have a bunch of average teams. Like I said, Carolina's playing well now, but I don't see the ACC having much success in the NCAA tournament. And it's kind of interesting because Duke's got a little bit of a Gonzaga thing going this year. They played a tough non-conference schedule, but these teams are so bad, they haven't really been tested that much in conference. It's going to be interesting. Like let's say Ole Miss is in the 8-9 game and Duke has to play them without Cooper Flagg in that second game. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I know Duke's been down 10 points or more a couple times this year and come back to win, so they show they can do it. But I just think blowing out teams like Duke has, these bad teams, will be interesting to see if that catches up with them in the tournament.
Yeah, the ACC is a great point about the ACC. I'm used to that half that league getting in the tournament. And right now, Tom, you've got Clemson, Louisville, and Duke as the only locks. And as you mentioned, North Carolina playing better ball as well. Let's go to the SEC. There's going to be some fireworks. I think you might be on Oklahoma here. Oklahoma, Kentucky, a couple weeks ago played a great one. 160 around, about 160 on the total, and Kentucky's laying 6.5 in this matchup.
Yeah, so in that first matchup, I took Kentucky on the money line, and it was probably the most even game I watched all year. That was one of those, like, at halftime, I said, like, this is coming down to a shot in the final seconds, right? Like Kentucky's biggest lead was 17-8. Oklahoma's biggest lead was 68-63. They were very evenly matched. They both had success going to the basket because that's where both defenses struggle. I don't see it changing much tonight. Listen, I buried Oklahoma. I was betting against them every game when they had that tough 5-game stretch. They were getting beat by 30. I mean, those were rocking chair wins. And all of a sudden, they score 57 points in the second half against Mississippi State. They've been a different team. Their 2 losses over that span have come by a total of 4 points. So they're playing well. I just think the line's a little high. I made it more around 4. So I think you're getting some value with the Sooners and what should be an exciting, close game.
Love it. There's another interesting one later. Just because USC's coming off double overtime against Rutgers, I want to see what their legs look like. Taking on a Purdue team with an elite backcourt. Boilermakers are laying 10.5 in this one in the Big Ten tourney. 149.5 is the total. What do you think of this matchup?
Yeah, I don't love Purdue laying 10.5. That's not really where you want to bet Purdue, but I was going to fade this USC Rutgers winner no matter who it was. USC just found the one team in the first round who plays worse defense than them. Their defense is non-existent right now. I'll tell you where I would look here, though, is I like the Purdue team total over. I think they could get to 90 tonight. I do think USC will score. Purdue's defense struggled at times this year, but they're just going to make more stops. 10.5, I can't get there with the Boilermakers, but I do like their team total over in that matchup.
Tom Cassali joining us, CBS Sportsline handicapper at the Tom Cassali on Twitter. Got a bunch of basketball going on right now, including in the Big 12, Tom. Texas Tech right now up 65-56, 11 minutes to play in the second over Baylor. But let's talk big picture with Texas Tech. This is a team you think could potentially make a Final Four run.
I do. They do a lot of things I like in a tournament setting. They rebound, they make shots. I always look for teams. You don't want to turn the ball over a lot, right? A team like Michigan who turns it over a lot, they're probably not going to last long in the tournament because sooner or later that's going to cost you. They protect the basketball. I like teams that can both make shots but can also hit the offensive boards because there's going to be that game where no matter how good you are shooting, the shots aren't falling. And you got to create second chance opportunities. You got to create more possessions. So I think this is a team, when I'm looking for Texas Tech, don't put them with Auburn. I want them away from Auburn. If we can get that, I think they can make a Final Four run.
So speaking of Auburn, Final Four feels inevitable, right? They're absolutely loaded. They're awesome on offense. They're awesome on defense. They're super deep. They can win any style of fight. What do you think about them tomorrow in the SEC tournament? I just had that game in front of me. What are they laying? They're laying 10.5 against Ole Miss, who had that dramatic win today. Totals 154.5. What would you do with Auburn tomorrow?
Yeah, I think this is a bad spot for Ole Miss. First of all, they don't match up well with Auburn. Auburn has scored over 90 and over 100 in their two matchups this year. So the matchup isn't there for them. Then I thought Auburn looked tired at the end of the year. Played in the SEC, they were a little beat up. They were a little mentally drained. I saw Bruce Pearl talking today. He's almost giddy about getting on the court. I think they're going to come out really strong. Now, I made the number 9.5, so it is a little high, and I don't think it's going to come down. I think it'll probably go to 11.5. I think the best way to attack this game is the first half number. I think Auburn's going to come out real hot. They're rested. They're 2 straight losses. I just think Mississippi's in a bad spot tomorrow. I think Auburn leads at half by 10 plus.
Let's talk. Well, Auburn, you mentioned you got a 28-1 ticket. That's tremendous on Auburn, who's great. We had Ken Palm on the show last week, and he was just talking about numbers. And he said, look, fellas, when it comes to Auburn and Duke, and not far behind with Houston, Tom, Ken Palm said these are 3 of the best teams he's analyzed numbers-wise. Eyeball for you, Auburn, Duke, and Houston, how good are they?
Yeah, I'm in agreement here. This is a year, I think, when we get to the Sweet 16, you're not going to see a bunch of upsets. I think the top 3 teams, and then you can maybe put Florida in there, just a shade below. I think they're going to be tough to beat because they can beat you different styles. I mean, we saw Auburn without Broome beat Tennessee in a 53-51 game. Like, they can adapt and play different styles. And all those teams are deep. They all hit the boards. They're just really good. Now, listen, it's college basketball. It's the NCAA tournament. Anything can happen. But in terms of those top 3 teams, I think they're as strong going back to that Gonzaga-Baylor year when it kind of looked like those two were on a collision course to the finals, and I didn't think anybody was going to beat them. I kind of feel that way with Duke and Auburn. They played a classic earlier in the season. I think we're going to get round 2 in the championship game.
But you mentioned the upsets, and that's what a lot of us live for this time of year. We want those upsets. We want the fun at the beginning, that Thursday, that Friday. Have you identified, I know we don't know the draw yet, but have you identified a couple teams that you're like, you know what, if it goes right for them, I think they could win 1 or 2 games and shock the world.
I'll give you 2 teams I like pre-matchup. UNC Wilmington plays a style that can bother some teams. They're deep. They send 10 guys at you. They remind me a little bit of Abilene Christian a couple years ago when they played Texas, and they caused turnovers, and it was that ugly game. They can do that to you. They rebound well. So I think Wilmington, getting a team like Kentucky as a 14-3, I think Kentucky would be nervous of that matchup. The other team that's been playing really well, who I looked at preseason that I kind of like because of experience, you don't see many mid-majors with experience anymore, is Wofford. They played really well down the stretch, and boy, can they make shots. So they rebound really well too. Now they would have trouble with a real athletic team, but if they don't get a team that can get out and run with them and just wear them down, I think they can make enough shots and compete on the boards to maybe pull a first-round upset.
Tom, we've got tomorrow Oregon taking on Michigan State. And Izzo's done a great job with that team this year. State's laying 5.5. Question about Indiana. Do you think Indiana, after the loss today, do you think the committee lets them in maybe that first 4? And then also Xavier with a loss today. Some of these teams on the bubble.
Yeah, Xavier's a team I like. I think they could win a game or 2 in the tournament if they get in. They've lost a ton of close games. They had some injuries early in the year. Indiana, I don't think is going to do much. I think with those teams, here's the problem with those teams. Texas is still playing. North Carolina is still playing. That makes it dicey now, because if Carolina wins tomorrow, they're in. Let's be honest, they might be in now, but if they beat Duke, they're in. And Texas has now got 2 wins there. So just a hunch, I say Indiana's out.
What do you think of Texas tomorrow, taking on Rick Barnes? Obviously, Tennessee has the bye in the SEC tournament, so they're rested. Texas is catching 10.5. Totals 135.5. You said it. They need it. They need to show something. They need a couple more wins in their back pocket. What do you think of the matchup tomorrow with the Vols?
Yeah, I was looking at that right before we came on. I'll say this. I think Texas matches up with Tennessee as well as they do any team in the SEC. If you look at the games they've played with Tennessee in the last year or so, they've all been physical. They've all been lower. They've hung around. I think if Texas still has its legs tomorrow, they can compete with the Vols. I like Tennessee. I don't love Tennessee. I think betting Tennessee when you got spots with them at home this year were some great spots. I still think, though, on the road on a neutral court, they're susceptible. They probably win the game, but I thought 10.5 opened up a little high for me.
Tom, BYU. Let's talk
Yep.
BYU. And now they've got Houston tomorrow. And to be fair, Colorado hung around, but Houston's a wagon. They're laying 7.5. But you know what? This is a big win for a BYU program today. They shot 50% from 3. We know they can stroke it, and they beat Iowa State today.
That's a team I have to completely change my numbers on because I didn't like them coming in the season. They were 6-6 in the Big 12. They haven't lost since. And they don't have hollow wins. They've beaten Kansas, they've beaten Arizona, and they've beaten Iowa State twice now. So first-year coach, he's doing a great job there. I like the way they're playing. I kept waiting for them to slip, but they just keep winning. I think that's going to be a competitive game. I do think they have a disadvantage, as most teams do, against Houston on the boards. And I think Houston might be able to bully them down low and maybe pull away. I would look and see if that's a close game at half. I might go with a Houston second half play in that one.
Hey, Dustin, real quick on BYU. I apologize. Yeah. That was a statement when they killed Kansas at home. And I know BYU is a different program at home, but Kansas is an all-time program. And I felt like that was, with a new coach, kind of a statement win where they just pummeled Kansas. And Kansas isn't the same this year. Anyway, I digress. I'm interested to see BYU with the three-point shooting in the tournament. Go ahead, big guy.
All right, Big Ten, Tom. Disparaging styles, opposite plans of attack here. We've got Wisconsin and UCLA. UCLA wants to slow it down. Wisconsin wants to, they can score it this year. Badgers laying 1, totals 141.5. How do you view these teams, not only in this matchup, but big picture when it comes to the tournament? Because Wisconsin went on a run where they were the flavor of the week and then had a couple rough losses. Do you think the Badgers have a chance of making like an Elite 8 run?
Yeah, and listen, Wisconsin's blowing my mind in basketball and football because they had the same styles in both sports for 30 years. Now it's air raid in football, it's run and gun in basketball. It doesn't look right to me, right? You want Wisconsin to play a 58-52 kind of game, but as you mentioned, they don't play that way anymore. I do think in a tournament style, there's two teams in the Big Ten, if they get in the right bracket, I think could make a little bit of a run, Maryland and Wisconsin, because they make shots. And if they get hot, a lot of things that go on in the tournament is that first game. Even if you don't blow a team out in that first game, it's getting the jitters out, getting used to the where you are, the neutral court. So teams get by that first game, they can be dangerous. I think Wisconsin's one of them because they, like you said, their offense is good and it will give certain teams problems in the tournament.
About 45 minutes away. I mentioned Kansas, Tom. Do you have a lean tonight? Kansas, Arizona laying 3?
Yeah, I did like Arizona on the opener. I had Kansas when they just played. I thought that was the best spot of the year for Kansas coming home, but still, the game was tied with a couple minutes to go. The Kansas got a couple shots late. They made some free throws, but it was one of those games again where it was kind of dead even. I think here's the problem with Kansas, and you saw it twice with UCF. Them and Gonzaga have the same problem. They struggle defending athletic guards. UCF killed them twice this year with their guards getting to the hoop. I think Caleb Love probably has a big game tonight. I don't like that the line is up to 3.5. I liked it better when it was 1.5, maybe an Arizona money line. Close game, but I think Arizona wins it tonight.
The ACC, we talked about it earlier how it's down. They do have an interesting team playing later tonight in Clemson. Tigers laying 6.5 against SMU. That totals 142.5. Clemson's one of those teams I'm going back and forth on if I want to bet them to make the Final Four. They did it, they had a great run a year ago. A bunch of those guys are back. I love Brad Brownell. What do you think of the matchup with SMU and big picture on Clemson as well?
Yeah, tonight's interesting because they beat SMU by 10 at SMU, but Boopy Miller didn't play. And I don't know if there's a more important player to a team. He's the point guard. He's the leading scorer. They went 2-3 without him. So SMU is a completely different team now that he's back and healthy. And I didn't think even when he came back, against Florida State, he looked right. Thought last night against Syracuse, that was the Boopy Miller we saw, for most of the season. I think it's going to be a real competitive game tonight. SMU hasn't really beaten good teams this year. They kind of beat up on bottom feeders. This is one of those games where I think Clemson wins, SMU covers. Clemson's the only other SEC team, though, besides Duke, because of the way, like you mentioned, experience, the way they play can bother people. I could see them having success in the NCAA tournament.
My man Tom Cassali is a college basketball savant. Let's do it again when we get to the big dance, Tom. In the meantime, you can see Tom at CBS Sportsline Handicapper and find him on Twitter at the Tom Cassali. Thanks, Tom. Enjoy the basketball. Appreciate you.
Thanks a lot for having me. Good luck tonight.
You got it, buddy. We'll do that again. Tom Cassali did a great job there. We throw a game at him, and he's just rattling it off. And by the way, people, Honduras.
Another?
We got a goal in Honduras in the 74th minute. So here's the bottom line. We've got, 15 plus extras to go, tied up at 1-1. I need one more goal in Honduras. LFG.
So, look, Honduras might be near the top of the list. By the way, for closing tabs later, I did ask AI, what are the best South American countries for Americans to live in? I will give you what the computer generated for the 6 countries it says is good for Americans. We will decide where you live in the future in closing tabs at the end of the program.
I love how Josh is so white and such a kind man that he goes, hey, Patrick, if you move to South America, you need to date a Latin woman. I'm like, Josh, that's the bit. I'm over white chicks.
Oh, my God. Could you imagine moving there and you meet some Irish girl from the Midwest?
If I move to Colombia and end up dating a white chick, I am doing life incorrectly. I mean, listen, cancel culture's over, people. I am done with white chicks. We continue. VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio.
All right, 4 minutes here.
Sports Radio with Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson. reaction to all of the night's action. You're tuned in to VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Here's Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson.
All right, so Louisville has turned it around. They're now up 5 with 3:05 to play on Stanford. Stanford was up like 12 2 seconds ago, and now it's 70-55 Louisville. A nice little comeback there. Dustin Swedelson. I'm Patrick Maher. Shout out to my guy Alex effing Caruso handing out fatties. I just wanted to. We got Jonathan Von Tobel with the NBA coming up at the top of the hour. Hey, real quick, I had an all-timer last night. It has nothing to do with betting. I don't know if you can enjoy the little things in life, then you may be like me, because your boy was awoke at like 2:30 a.m. last night, and I had the best time ever.
And this is a good thing.
So it was so pure. So generally, I sleep pretty well, but it was so loud that I was startled, and I woke up. And when I tell you, we have the best thunderstorm going on in Los Angeles. There were tornadoes. We had the best thunderstorm. I got my ass out of bed, grabbed a chair, and went and sat by my sliding door, opened it up just a crack. The wind was crazy. The rain was crazy. And I just sat and enjoyed myself. I love a good thunderstorm. And if I lived in the Midwest, what we used to do is park our fat asses in the garage and just watch the rain. But I don't have a garage.
I can't tell if this is the deepest thing you've ever said or the most depressing thing, or you've gotten really old, because instead of going back to sleep, you opted to watch the rain. I'm just getting that right. You opted to watch the rain.
Yes. I got out of bed. I was like, damn, because it doesn't often rain here.
Yeah.
And if you're going to get a really nice thunder boomer, you got to take advantage of it. 2:30 a.m., got out of bed, got a chair, sat by the door, and just enjoyed myself. And you know what I said to myself meditatively? It's the little things in life. You got to really enjoy yourself and remain present. And so I chilled, 2:30 a.m., watched the rain. I want to know.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like we're supposed to tell CCR that you're the one they're singing about. You didn't go back to sleep at all? The rain soothed you, and like that's how you started your day?
What are you talking about? Of course I went back to sleep. What do you think I sat? Dustin, he's in his head, people. You think I sat from 2:30 until the next day at the door?
Yes, I thought you were saying, because you said you meditated, you do that for long periods of time. I thought you were saying you woke up at 2:30, the rain excited you. You sat there and watched it till the sun came up, and that's how you started your day.
Hey, Ryan, Isaiah, this donk. You think I had a 7-hour meditation?
I thought you were chilling for a while.
Yeah, that's what I did. I meditated for 7 straight hours.
So how long did you watch the rain?
The big guy got up at 2:30 and just sat for 7 straight hours watching a thunderstorm. It was lit, though. It was lit. Speaking of which, Jonathan Von Tobel, our VSiN senior NBA insider, he's joining us next, and he hates the Lakers.
Covering the spread all night long. This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio.
All right.
VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson.
Isaiah's playing some basic ass bumpers. If you're wondering why our music stinks on the show now, it's because we're streaming on YouTube and YouTube doesn't let you play music. So you can find us on YouTube at VSiN Live. You can also find us on something called Rumble. You can find us on something called Twitch, and you can find us on something called Kick. So who is us? That's Dustin. I'm Patrick, as we welcome you back. And remember, right now, VSiN, and the feedback has been wild, people. People are going over to VSiN.com and saying, wait, you're telling me there's no paywall and I can get Jonathan Von Tobel's NBA plays? And Bill AD's like, yeah, Jonathan's my best friend. And then people are like, I can get Dustin Swedelson's plays and he's like second on the leaderboard. And Bill AD's like, yep, because I love the big guy and I love the customers. And that's what we're doing right now. VSiN.com/champ week. Bill opened it up. No commitment, no nothing. You get the splits, you get the picks, you get everything until Selection Sunday. VSiN.com/champ week. And for those taking score at home, we got a goal in Honduras in the 87th minute. So that's a winner, Dustin Swedelson.
Honduras, now, right now in our power rankings for countries for you to move to, it is currently number 1 because we haven't decided on any others. But right now, Honduras has been very good to you.
A man that is close to my heart because he doesn't know this, but I'm moving to South America because of the ladies. He married a Mexican lady, and she's a dime. His name is Jonathan Von Tobel, VSiN host, VSiN Primetime, Monday through Friday, 7 to 11 p.m. Eastern, at MeJVT on Twitter. Hi, Jonathan.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Best friend of Bill 80. I think I'm number 2 on the list, right next to Paul Howard.
Behind Paul Howard. Okay.
Yeah.
And then where does Dustin Swedelson fit in?
I think like 4 at the very least. I would assume Mitch is in there. I don't know. But I would assume it's like Paul, me, Mitch, and then Dustin, and then Derek Stevens.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's correct. I think that is the correct order, actually.
Yeah.
I think you completely nailed it. I agree completely.
Well, you could, and Bill's being benevolent because he's giving it away for free. And you know, you've been working at VSiN since the inception. We've never done this. Go to VSiN.com/champ week. I couldn't believe it when the books yesterday said, hey, you like plus 130 on Oklahoma City? Go ahead, take it. And I said, yes, please. They're so much better in Boston. Boston took 63 three-point attempts.
They did, and I will say that I fell for the low-hanging fruit. Look, I thought number-wise, 2.5 for a Celtics team that was only missing Kristaps Porzingis when you're playing the Thunder, who didn't have Alex Caruso and did not have Jalen Williams. But OKC did a phenomenal job on defense, limiting Boston to do anything other than shoot threes. Now, I think it's actually an interesting little conversation to have because I think that Boston got its ass kicked yesterday, right? I think it did. Having said that, it only lost by 6. So there's an interesting conversation to be had of like all these people who hate 3-point shots. Well, Boston's going to show you yesterday and go, dude, the only reason we were in that game is because we were chucking and we were hitting some of these things. Like they didn't even shoot a great clip. They shot 31%. They were 20 of 63 in non-garbage time. They take away the heaves, and yet they still only lost 118 to 112. And now you have to make the argument that you should get to the free throw line. They only had 12 shots within 4 feet of the basket. Like there's ways to improve. But when you talk about why Boston does what it does, yesterday's a good example. It's the math game, folks. They made 7 more threes than the Oklahoma City Thunder. They outscored them by 21, and that's the reason they were only down by 6 when they lost.
So, but let's say we're in the NBA Finals, JVT, and things aren't going well from the outside. Do you think Boston would ever adjust and play a different style there against Oklahoma City? Maybe a slower pace, maybe not shooting as many threes? I know you're saying that they made it a 6-point game, but do you think they're built to do that against Oklahoma City if they needed to do something different?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, well, first off, in terms of pace, I don't think you need to worry. Like yesterday was less than 100 possessions. So it was actually a pretty slow game by NBA standards. It wasn't the tempo I thought they killed them. It was just, hey, look, there is, I think, more to Tatum's game when you're talking about the ability to attack the rim. We saw it a couple of times last night, and when you attack the rim, you can also get a little bit more. But at the free throw line, I should add to that. But I would also say that Boston does drive, but it's always drive and kick, and it's trying to get teams into rotations, and it's trying to find open looks. They're not just passing it around the key and then jacking up a contested look. They are moving the ball, and they are moving themselves, and then, of course, trying to find open looks off of that. What I think is going to be interesting, and I was talking to Tim about this when we were on the air yesterday, there's a stretch in the first quarter and a stretch in the fourth quarter. I'll have to go back and watch the game to see if there was any others. But if you guys noticed last night, the Thunder, did not start their two bigs together. Isaiah Hartenstein came off the bench. They started Chet Holmgren. And then they went to a double big lineup about the first quarter, beginning of the second. And one of the issues that you have when you play those two together, especially against a team like Boston, is they give up a ton of threes. Over 40% of opponent attempts come from beyond the arc when Hartenstein and Holmgren play together. And Boston started bombing away. And all of a sudden, a game that we're leading, all of a sudden Boston tied up. And then with 2.5 minutes of game time later, Dagnall was like, nope, we're done with this. Get him out of here. And we saw him again late, and that was at the start of the fourth quarter, but they got away with it. So, Dustin, like to the point of adjustment to what this matchup looks like if they play one another in the finals, those are going to be key stretches if they play the two bigs together. And remember, too, they didn't play Kristaps Porzingis. Obviously, he's been sick with this weird issue, a viral illness that they can't figure out, which you hope he's going to be healthy. So that's also going to add to it, too, because Luke Cornett got burned quite a few times, I thought, in that game yesterday as well. So there's some factors in it, but I think to Patrick's point that he opened up with, look, I'm not going to beat down your doors if you're going to tell me you think the Thunder are better. I don't think there's much separating these two, and if you think that OKC rates better on a neutral, there's a feather in your cap that you are right in that instance.
I agree that the game's a little misleading. As well as Oklahoma City should have beat them by more. By the way, Louisville should have beat Stanford by more. They just barely squeaked out a win, 75-73. That game just finished seconds ago. There's another one I want to update you on. Texas Tech and Baylor.
Yeah.
A barn burner right now. Jonathan, 11 seconds to go. Texas Tech. Ooh, they just got a bucket up 76-72 over Baylor. You can talk about that one and anything else that stands out today in conference tournaments for you.
Yeah, you should be able to get this. Baylor just got a quick bucket to make it. Yeah, so I think you should be fine outside of some shenanigans here, unless they're going to pull. Is Texas Tech going to pull a John Calipari from the other day, where they're going to hit the first free throw and then up by 3 with actually, how about that, with less than 2? So we're almost like right there in the exact scenario. Miss it on purpose. That was one of the stupider things we're going to see. No, I think so far, like days like today, I will say, in the grand scheme of it, I do enjoy these days more than I enjoy like yesterday. Thursdays are great in this conference tournament week because you get so many. The late night slate tonight coming up here the next 30 minutes, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Villanova, UConn, Kansas, Arizona. All of these games are going to be absolutely tremendous. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I put a small bet on Arizona, laying 3 against Kansas. Kansas, of course, fighting tooth and nail yesterday with UCF, barely getting by them. And then now facing an Arizona team that I think wants a little bit of vengeance. Remember, less than a week ago, they went out there to Fog Allen, right? And lost a tight game, ended up letting go of the rope. I think on a neutral against a Kansas team that looks pretty fraudulent, I think you're going to be able to get this done while you're sitting back and getting ready for them. And I would venture a guess that Arizona and the staff over there was getting ready for Kansas and not so much UCF. And I think they're going to be prepared for the Jayhawks here in this spot. So, but I'm looking forward to it. I think these rounds are great. And I'm a big Mountain West guy. And we get 2 late night hoop games in the Mountain West as well. I'm looking forward to later this evening.
I laid 6 with Texas Tech, so that is not going to happen here. 4.5 seconds to go.
Sorry,
I need a desperate overtime to cover that number. You mentioned the Mountain West. I know you wrote it up. You have a future play in that league. Patrick was a big Mountain West guy for a couple of years. I don't think he's as into it as he was.
I liked it because I was living in Vegas, so I kind of try to adapt to the region I live in. But then they just kept on getting decimated outside of San Diego State come tournament time. Go ahead.
So who do you like to win the league? Who is worthy of a play here?
Well, it's a little late now because they're playing, and we're going to be on to the semis here pretty soon. But I would just say this for anybody who's been watching, and this goes into the NCAA tournament too. Watch out for Colorado State. I think the Rams can win this tournament. They're playing Nevada right now. They're up 10-4 early on. They have been on a tear. So they've won 7 straight coming into the Mountain West tournament, guys. Over those 7 games, Bartorvik has them as a top 10 team in the country. They've been playing incredible basketball. They have a great player in Nick Clifford, who's an NBA prospect. If you haven't seen him, I would very much tell you to go and watch him, especially right now. The dude's got an insane wingspan. It looks like his hands can drag on the floor while he's standing straight up. He's jumping passing lanes. He's very good defensively, at least in terms of trying to force turnovers. And he can stuff it up when you're talking about the stat sheets. To close out the regular season, they went to Boise in a tight game, at least spread-wise. In 38 minutes, you dropped 36 points with 4 rebounds, 3 assists on 72% shooting. Like, the kid's fantastic. So he's going to be able to lead Colorado State on an easy side of the bracket, too, by the way. if they win this game, they're going to be able to face the winner of UNLV Utah State. And then, of course, you win that, you're on to the conference championship game against whoever comes out of the teams at the top. So it's a really clear path. And I think this team is going to be a mini bid stealer here. They are not inside the bracket right now. And if they win this thing, you're going to get 4 teams, I believe, coming out of the Mountain West, when right now on paper it looks like 3. And if they do, then these teams that are right there on the bubble, it's going to be a little bit of an issue for them. But I love this Colorado State team.
Did either of you do anything with Oklahoma, Kentucky? That's coming up in like 17 minutes. Kentucky's 6.5, but going to be a lot of points there. 160 on the total, Dustin.
Oh, you know what? I didn't do an official play here, but I do like Oklahoma. I would make that an official play. They need this one. They have a game under their belt, as I just lost with Texas Tech, who had a bye in the Big 12 tournament. Yeah. Sometimes those teams that played a game earlier, like the momentum works. They're used to the sight lines of the arena. The other team has to get going and get up for the game. I like Oklahoma just because they're a bubble team and they need it. It's not the best reason to place bets, but in this spot, I like it.
Yeah, I would add to your case in saying that one of the things that works for you too, Dustin, is Kentucky, and it speaks to a bigger picture about the SEC, which we can get into if you want, but there is, I think, a little bit of fraudulence with Kentucky, by extension, the SEC. If you look at all these teams, you can point to, I think, very glaring red flags for each of them outside of the top 3 coming out of the conference. So for Kentucky, this is a team that finished 13th in SEC play in defensive efficiency. They give up 112.3 points per 100 possessions to SEC opponents. It's not good. That's very, very bad. And we saw that pop up multiple times throughout conference play. And they come in like they're playing a little bit better, but congrats on beating LSU and Missouri, who's completely falling apart defensively down the stretch here. I would agree with you and premise this in that, look, I don't trust Kentucky defensively to win by margin against many opponents, especially an SEC opponent that I think they're pretty level with. So 6.5 seems like a little bit of a bridge too far. Interesting that we've seen this total dip. We actually opened 164.5. It's down to 160. I think that would tell you that plays a little bit more at Oklahoma's pace.
What was your reaction to Cooper Flagg getting wheeled out today?
I think there's a couple of things. So first off, obviously for Duke, I mean, we're talking about a team that is the favorite to win it all, at least over at Circa in multiple spots. So that's obviously very big. Selfishly, as somebody who in the Circa draft got Auburn to win the whole thing on a free roll, I was like, okay, cool, maybe no. Okay, it looks like he's going to be fine. But I would venture that we don't see him for the rest of the ACC tournament. You make sure he's ready to go by the time we get to the NCAA tournament. But you held your breath a little bit. I mean, that's a big competitor. That could be damaged goods if Cooper Flagg's not ready.
All right, so Duke has North Carolina tomorrow. They'll be without Flagg. It's 7.5-point spread. Duke's laying at 156.5 in the total. Not necessarily about this game, but more about North Carolina. Are you like me? I feel like you're probably on the same page as me. Do you not want to see North Carolina in the NCAA tournament? Wouldn't you rather see just about anyone else than a mediocre team in a bad conference this year that is getting credit for beating up on that bad conference late in the season?
You think that me, anti-establishment, screw New York and screw LA, we don't need them in the grand scheme of the NBA. The NBA is not better with the Knicks. Golf's not better with Tiger, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, of course I don't want them in there. Get them out of here. They stink. We were talking about this yesterday on Primetime with Tim. If I just gave you the resume and said, here's Dayton, the committee would laugh and kick them out. They would be like, no, we're not doing this. What are you talking about? But because it's North Carolina, we got to give them a shot. They're sitting there scrapping every possession with Wake Forest, right? Like, this is not a team that I want in my NCAA tournament. But here's the thing, Dustin. They're probably going to get in. They think they're too good for this, which they're not. But watch out, because they are Dayton material, I think, resume-wise. And the NCAA would love nothing more than to have North Carolina play in their first 4 so that everybody has to watch.
I'm going back to the Mountain West. You should know this team, UNLV's Utah State. Utah State, you can find a 7.5 up to 8. You have anything there?
So I yesterday tried to get cute, and it looked good for a while. I played Air Force in-game money line, and they were up for a good chunk of that game against UNLV. The Rebels are really beat up. De'Don Thomas is injured and not available for them. Julian Rishwain, a guy who really took it by the reins and was great when De'Don Thomas went down, had over 20 points against San Diego State in the upset win over them at the Thomas and Mack about a week ago. He's also done for the foreseeable future. It's lower body. I can't remember if it's knee or foot. But this team's beat up and really thin. And look, there's some rumblings that this team's going to look different from top to bottom, coaching-wise and player-wise next year. So I think that they're a team that's not really like feeling it too much. And I think that showed yesterday. They needed a 17-0 run to beat Air Force. They were down throughout that entire game before Air Force started falconing all over the place and looked like the worst team in the Mountain West. So I don't really trust them, is the whole point. I think Utah State is a flawed group, but I will say this, Patrick, as somebody who would rather lay it with Utah State, the Rebels, oddly enough, were getting a little bit of support in the futures market in the NCAA for the tournament. There was a big bet that was listed out there, DraftKings for UNLV to win the Mountain West Conference tournament. There was a couple of bettors that were talking with humans and others that were talking about the Rebels to win the conference tournament. It's not something that I would agree with, but there are opinions out there that think that the Running Rebels at least can make some noise here.
Oh,
They're going to move on from Kruger already?
I don't have that. I'm not going to report anything, but it just seems like that is kind of the case. Because here's the thing, excuse me, with the program where it's at right now, the athletic department is, I think, learning when you dump money into something, or if you can go and get money, that you can succeed. Look at the football program. As somebody who grew up out here and watched UNLV athletics, this is night and day from what it used to be. You would go out and say, oh, it's cute. Look at this football team. Like, I guess they're still out here. And, my college football memories, as I always like to say, Dustin grew up out there, you're in Georgia or whatever, watching actual college football. I was going out and watching at Sam Boyd, getting my, cheeks all burned to the seats and the steel girders, BYU coming out and smoking UNLV and then walking out, but then getting excited for basketball season. But I do think there is a desire in the athletic department to go get more money and dump it on this basketball program to get it back to where it was. And you have a football program that has gotten a lot of money and a lot of publicity over the last few years. And I think there's a lot of people who think they can fix it with that money. And I don't know if Kruger's part of that. So we will see.
But why? I know we probably have this conversation every 3 to 4 years. Why doesn't UNLV ever win? It should be so easy. It should be so easy to get college kids to go there. I don't understand this.
Dude, I mean, I'm with you. So I texted my colleague out here, Steve Cofield, who works for ESPN Las Vegas. So I don't know if you guys know this, but so we just talked about UCF playing Kansas, right? UCF has a great young forward. His name's Keyshawn Hall. He has the most, I believe he had the most 20-point games in the Big 12 this year for an individual player. You know where he started his career?
UNLV?
UNLV. He came out here, and he was a pudgy 18-year-old who wasn't really too comfortable. Kruger really couldn't keep him. He went to George Mason after he left. He shaped his body, got more mature, and then now he's with UCF, a Power 5 program, or Power 4 program, however you want to label it, and he's again, leading the Big 12 in 20-point games and being a phenomenal player on a big stage against Kansas and almost helping his team pull off the upset. So, Dustin, to your point, you can get players out here. It's up to the coaching staff to keep them around, and they just haven't been able to do that. If this UNLV team with Deion Thomas had Keyshawn Hall and the pieces that they have, they're probably a pretty competitive group. So that's on somebody, and it ain't me, to keep these players around and keep them comfortable so that you can actually build something. So I'm with you. It should be attractive. You have Mendenhall Center, which is used by the NBA and the Olympics to train their players. It is by far one of the better facilities out there. It's an attractive place to play, but for some reason you can't keep it, and that's on an administration and a coaching staff that has not been consistent.
But I want to ask you, big guy, why do you think for a college kid, why do you think UNLV would be an attractive place to go play?
So it's the biggest city in their league, right? It's pretty far and away the biggest city in their league. I think for kids who want to party and have fun and have a little bit of both worlds, I think Vegas offers that to them. I know of a couple people who went to UNLV from when I was younger, and they used to come back home and rave about how much they enjoyed their time here, because I think the thing about Vegas that is unique for people, especially not from big cities, is you can get a lot of the amenities of a big city while not having some of the more difficult things like traffic and the busyness that goes with it. You can kind of live on the outskirts. I don't know. I just think UNLV, I think back to the Stacey Augmon, the Greg Anthony, the Running Rebs.
Sure.
It worked once. And I know things were a little different. There was a little shakiness
That was lightning
going on
to
there.
the bottom, though. That was.
Yeah, but it's all up front now. I mean, you should be able to, Look, I'll
they
say
have
this.
money. Does
Look,
UNLV have money? Do they have NIL? Who gives them money?
They have some money. I don't know how much they really have. I know they have some. And I know they've had money before the NIL.
But who's richer in their conference than them? Who's richer? Boise?
I mean, well, I would say, you remember, you're forgetting San Diego State's in the conference, and San Diego State is a little bit bigger. Yeah. And when you're talking about city size, and of course, the program's been very, very good for a very long time. New Mexico has some strong support for their basketball program, not so much their football program, but look, it's just about you got to be able to play the game and get the people. You got to shake babies and kiss hands, man. That's what you got to do. You got to get them out there. The money's there. I mean, they built the Fertitta Football Center is an awesome complex for the football program. They went and got Barry Odom. They went and got Dan Mullen. So you just got to get the right people to really get involved here too. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, look, I'll tell your audience this, as I'm sure they love the hardcore Vegas UNLV talk. But I'll say this: hey, out here, if you haven't been out here, back in like the day, and it's not even the heyday, when I was coming out of high school and Dave Rice had like first come onto the scene, if you remember, they had upset, I think it was #1 North Carolina at the time. North Carolina came out here to play Orleans Arena. UNLV beat them outright. It was a great game. And in the few years that Rice was here, when he had some success, dude, there was nothing like it. Like, people were talking about running Rebels. You were going to the games. I'm taking my now wife, my girlfriend, my then girlfriend. We're having to buy tickets in the second level of the Thomas and Mack because there's not enough, because you're playing San Diego State. It might be a college game, or, it might be a game day, ESPN night, all sorts of things. So I hope they fix it, because it'd be pretty cool out here. And as we've talked about before, Las Vegas is a basketball town, and a lot of people will learn that, especially when the NBA gets here.
So, it's also a baseball town. But the big guy, it's a great baseball town.
Yep.
Boy, Dan Mullen. Dustin's a big Dan.
I love Dan Mullen.
He's such a dog.
Stop. Dan Mullen.
Will his wife continue to kiss the players as they come off the bus? That's what I'm wondering.
Whoa, is that what they do? Open marriage?
Yeah, she always kisses him on the cheek. Every player, she go look it up. She would go. I always laughed at it when they were in Florida, and she would wait by the bus door and give every player a kiss on the cheek, as they were leaving.
I searched
Dustin just like Mullen because he brought him back and he came on the show, but he's kind of
No. I like Dan Mullen because Dan Mullen created Dak Prescott at Mississippi State. He had Mississippi State #1 in the country.
That's true.
And then as far as his wife goes, I search those videos on X videos sometimes. It's called Hot Wife.
Okay.
Dabble.
Hey,
like dabble.
Before we go back to the NBA, Jonathan Von Tobel, VSiN, of course, VSiN Primetime, NBA insider for us, senior NBA analyst. I want to ask you, those that don't know, Jonathan is an Indianapolis Colts fan.
Welcome to my hell, JVT. Welcome.
Let's do this. You got a good quarterback competition brewing in Indy. It's going to be Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones. How excited are you?
I mean, I don't think you're excited, right? I mean, obviously the jokes write themselves when it comes to this quarterback battle. I think it's pretty obvious though what the Colts are doing. I think it's twofold, right? It's #1, you can't bring in somebody that can realistically beat Anthony Richardson, or at least be a massive favorite over him in a quarterback battle. You want to bring in somebody who he can beat. I think it's partly because you want him to build confidence in winning a quarterback competition. I also think it's in part that you can show outwardly that he won a battle, and you don't have to answer questions about whether or not he rightfully should start. Because if they went and got an Aaron Rodgers, if they went and got even, I would say, a Justin Fields, you're going to be back to square one where you were last year, which is a bunch of people calling for the other guy, which I will always remind everybody, you idiots were wrong. Joe Flacco stinks. And I was shouting it from the mountaintops last year. But I think that's what it was. The other part is last year when Joe Flacco came in, your offense completely changed because he is a statuesque quarterback who cannot move. And you needed, I think, somebody with a little bit more verve with his athleticism that if and when Anthony Richardson gets hurt, because he has not proven to be able to stay healthy, both in college and in pros, that you can run your same offense because you have a similar level athlete. And yes, a similar level athlete in Daniel Jones that you can actually do some stuff with. So look, I don't think they're going to be some great group. I don't think former UNLV quarterback, to get UNLV one more pop here, Shane Steichen, is going to be able to turn things around here with Daniel Jones, and we'll see what Anthony Richardson is. But at the end of the day, the Colts needed him to win this battle. They need to see what they have because they need to see that if they need to move off or not of the guy they took 4th overall.
So you brought his name up. I thought you'd be excited we didn't bring up Aaron Rodgers' name until right now in the conversation because everyone's he does stink. Where do you think he lands?
I mean, Pittsburgh. I think it's the only choice. It's the only team that really, because here's the thing. So no, it's not going to go to Minnesota. He's not going to go to. Why would the Vikings do? No, why would the Vikings do that? Why would the Vikings do that? I don't understand. What bridge? They already had a bridge. It was Sam Darnold. Now they're in the same spot. It's time to crap or get off the pot when it comes to JJ McCarthy. You have to find out what. So realistically, what you guys are talking about here is you're going to go with this last gasp with Aaron Rodgers potentially, who we should be fair statistically was an average quarterback last year. Right, he was average. Every statistic points to him being middle of the pack. The season was a nightmare, but he was fine. So you're going to go and get him You're going to have this last gasp potentially. By the way, what if you go and get him and the reality is he really is declining and he goes from average to poor? Because that is something that could happen. He is very old. And you're going to push this off one more year. So then you're going to have J.J. McCarthy in his third year with the decision coming up, fifth-year option or not, and you have no idea what you have at quarterback. I just don't understand what the logic is there. They have set the team up so that he can come in and be very comfortable in that situation. It's a great position to develop a young quarterback in. I don't know why they would do this with Aaron Rodgers, who we haven't even mentioned the noise that comes with him when he is doing everything that he does on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, the McCarthy thing, is he complete? Is he good to go? Is he healthy? That's the question.
I mean, that's a fair question. I unless the knee injury is much more serious than initially thought, but I don't think that's the case.
Okay, how weird is it, do you think, of the way they walked away from Sam Darnold, didn't franchise tag him so they could trade him and get something for him, and then Darnold going to Seattle, the fit there? Like, what do you make of the whole thing with Darnold, Minnesota to Seattle?
Well, I think Minnesota. So I always think it's very telling when a team has a guy in the building and then lets them walk for now. Like, they're like, we're good.
Yeah.
And to a lesser extent, right? I'll give you an example. We were just talking about my Colts. The Colts saw Gardner Minshew lead them to within a dropped pass of making it into the postseason. And you know what they said? We'll take Joe Flacco. Go get your money, buddy. And guess what? Gardner Minshew sucked for the Raiders, right? Like, he was terrible. So, like, when teams do that, they have obviously a much better view of what that guy is, I believe. And we all saw the last two games, and I think Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings knew that this was a ticking time bomb, that they were like, holy smokes, like, we're getting so much out of this dude. This is crazy, right? Like, they're sitting on the sidelines elbowing each other like, dude, are you seeing this? Like, how are we getting this done? And then, of course, the season ends, he turns into a pumpkin, and they're like, all right, we got to move on. So I think from that perspective, it's not that crazy. What I find crazy is Seattle willingly engaging in a complete and utter rebuild. I don't understand that. You won 10 games. Geno Smith is a decent quarterback. Invest in the offensive line. Make DK Metcalf happy. Draft for your defense. And in an NFC West, by the way, that, look, the Rams look like they're going to be extremely good. But look, the 49ers are an old and decrepit team that you could beat. The Cardinals aren't anything special. And the NFC as a whole, you can make it to the playoffs. I just don't understand why you willingly engage in a teardown here and let everybody go. I think that's the most shocking aspect of, the Darnold, Vikings, Seahawks dynamic.
Well, it's not even the Seahawks rebuild with a soft but kind of real commitment to Darnold.
Yeah.
It was a 3-year, hey, pretty good, not great. It's like, we're halfway in, we're halfway out with Darnold, and we don't know if and they just signed Valdez-Scantling, like the fan base is supposed to get excited. How about
I often confuse Marcus Valdez-Scantling with DK Metcalf, so I can understand that.
Yeah, no, same player.
Yeah.
I like Geno a lot. I think the Raiders. What about the rest of the offseason there in Vegas for the Raiders?
Yeah. So that's the thing. And like, I do cover the Raiders a little bit part-time out here. I work for ESPN Vegas and do some local stuff. And one of the things that I keep talking about when I've gone on air the last few weeks has been, what I don't like is that this is a team that I could replay you the talking points for this Raiders squad from the offseason, from last offseason, from the offseason prior. We're not rebuilding. We're just retooling. We're going to take a roster and we're going to make a, right. It's all just the same nonsense. And here we are again. You have signed a quarterback who is the oldest quarterback in NFL history. That is a 3-year window. You have brought in a quarterback who is going to probably fit with their head coach. So I don't understand the willingness to try to press the gas when you're driving a 94 slug bug whose engine is falling out, and you keep trying to say, we're going to get this bad boy across the finish line in the Indy 500. You're like, no, you're not. You got to stop trying at this point right now, but they're not going to do it. And what irritates me more, Patrick, is if they were going to go for it, because I love Geno Smith too. I'm with you. I think he's awesome. I think if you put him in the right system, he can be absolutely great. Every number points to that. His numbers when he was kept clean, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He had a turnover-worthy play rate of less than 1.5%, which is immaculate. Doesn't put the ball in danger when he's kept upright. Awesome guy. But then your top 4 defensive free agents, you all let leave in free agency. Spillane being the most important among them, their linebacker, who's now with the New England Patriots. I don't know what you're doing. So are we going for it or not? Because you can't realistically let this defense fall apart, try to retool this thing, and then really give Geno Smith nothing to work with along this offensive line and go, yeah, boys, we're going to make a push in a division that has potentially 3 other playoff teams in it. Let's do this thing. I just don't buy it.
All right, you just killed the excitement I had because coming before this conversation, I thought the Geno Smith move was the first like real opportunity for the Raiders to get a little bit of traction in Vegas. Because I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. You're a little bit closer and covering like the local scene, but it doesn't feel like people care about the Raiders being in Vegas big picture.
No, of course not. I mean, because you can't go to the games. First off, it's as we keep calling it. Steve Cofield, it's for his second pop here on this hit. I'll steal this term from him. He calls it's a wine and cheese crowd, right? The tickets are way expensive. Your local, the average Raider fan is not going to be able to make it in. If they are, they're saving a whole bunch to maybe go to one game. So they're somewhat disconnected. They've done a great job in the community, from what I can understand. So I think that's pretty great. And I think people are like, cool, NFL team. But you also have to understand the big thing that is working against them, Dustin, is they have across the way a tried and true homegrown expansion franchise that has won a championship in the Vegas Golden Knights. Also across the way is another, now that was a relocation as well, but still very much feels more like a local homegrown in the Las Vegas Aces, who do have a very strong following out here, who have also won a couple of championships. Like there's not really anything to, I think, latch yourself onto at this point for the Raiders. So maybe it'll happen. It's football, it's king, whatever. But like the Raider fans that I talk to are in passing. It's like, oh yeah, I hope they do well, where you'll walk around this town and every game day you will see a Vegas Golden Knights jersey, like tons of them. And that's something that I think they will not ever get.
Cranky ass city, cranky ass JVT. By the way, when Kelsey Plum was playing, my girl Ethel took me to a game. I was transfixed.
She's single.
Darren Waller's punk ass was sitting front row.
Not anymore.
And they were giving each other the googly eye the whole entire time.
Yeah, she's very much worth making bad rap videos over.
Shoot your shot.
You guys kill me about a certain women. You guys
No. I actually no. Remember, if you remember, I was actually on your side with that. I was on your side.
Not with Caitlin.
Yeah, I was.
You were?
Yes, I just thought you were a creep in the way you went about it.
I thought you were just trolling me.
No. Like I like. Look, as I will always say, I mean, look at me. Who am I to turn down anybody? So, like, of course, I'm always going to be on the side of, I see the beauty in everybody, including Matt Humans. So,
I don't.
But it's I always thought I was being unconventional with Kelsey Plum, but then I started to realize I think others.
No, that's there's
a magnetism there.
Yeah, no. That's a very popular. I don't know, for lack of a better term, crush, if you will. Like that's a very popular side to be on.
Yeah, she has an endorsement deal with Skims, Kim Kardashian's company, to legit be a model for them. Like that's
I didn't know that. And listen, I thought I was ahead of the curve.
Also, why do I know that though?
Shea Alexander has one too.
Skims?
Phantom Nugget.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, enjoy the rest of your evening, Mr. Jonathan Von Tobel. Oh, by the way, the Pistons, let's see, Cade's got like 50 and 100.
They win?
And are they
They came back and I believe they won.
Did they? Well, no, the Wizards are up 126-125 in Detroit with 41 seconds to play. That would be the worst loss of the year across the board.
Well, it also sucks. I have this under on this Wizards team under 22.5. And ever since they started playing veterans like Marcus Smart and Chris Middleton, they're actually competent. And they've won like 4 out of 7 or something. It's kind of irritating.
Which makes no sense. The whole entire strategy all year was to not win basketball games. All right, Jonathan Von Tobel, VSiN host, VSiN Primetime. You can check out his picks. Again, we're giving everything away for free over at VSiN.com right now. VSiN Primetime, Monday through Friday, 7 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Well, Monday through Friday. It's like Monday, Wednesday, then a Saturday, then a...
Hopefully that changes.
Never smiles.
Yeah.
At me, JVT, on Twitter. Thank you, Jonathan. We'll talk to you next week.
See you guys.
Later. There he goes. We'll get you updated on the 6:30 tips. Some good games underway. College hoops, conference tournaments, VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio.
This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson. Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson.
All right, let's get to your calls. We got college hoops, of course. Kansas, Arizona, about to tip off. Arizona laying 3 there. We were talking Mountain West with Jonathan, and we got our buddy in San Diego, Charles, joining us here talking San Diego State. Hi, Charles.
Hey guys. Hey. So Jonathan, I don't know if he just maybe blinded by all the LED lights in Vegas or whatever, but said something pretty stupid when he said that, Vegas is the biggest city in the country.
No, that was me. That was me.
Oh, that was you that said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. San Diego's like the 8th largest city in the country, and it's pretty attractive place to play basketball.
Are you sure? 8? Let me look that up. I'm not.
Oh, you're right.
Sure.
It used to be the 6th largest city in the country, but it's kind of going downhill.
The big guy botched it.
It was off the top of my head. It's the Mountain West. I forgot San Diego State's there.
But I still don't, Charles. I don't understand this. I don't understand why everybody thinks kids just want to go play. UNLV's campus is like a commuting campus. I don't know why kids would want to go play at UNLV instead of San Diego State. Hold on, let Charles answer, big guy.
I don't know either. And San Jose is actually even bigger than Vegas.
You know what? That's a good point.
Would want to go to the Bay Area too. They'd want to go.
I know. No, but I was putting you on the spot a little bit, and you actually had a pretty good answer. But people say I lived in Vegas, stunk. Why would kids want to go play in Vegas?
Look, I also don't believe in going to if I was a college kid, there is no appeal to me of going to a major city where the college isn't the biggest thing in the city. So I wouldn't go to a San Diego State. I wouldn't go to San Jose State, and I wouldn't go to UNLV. I was just kind of saying things that I've heard others say about why they would go to UNLV, why it intrigues them. But I'm with you. I want to go to a college town.
I don't understand. Athens, Georgia. Yeah. You know what I mean? I want to go and get with co-eds. I don't want to go to Vegas where it's just like club promoters.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right, but I think there is a mystique about Vegas when you're not here. I think because you lived here and you saw it all, it kind of got torn down. Whereas people from the outside think Vegas, oh, that's so cool, the party life, all of that. I'd prefer more of a campus life and all that goes with it. But I think there are people that want that. They want like a faster pace, and they come from places where Vegas is a major city to them. But credit to Charles. San Jose and San Diego are indeed bigger.
San Jose is the biggest
Vegas.
City in the world.
It was off the top of my head. It wasn't my best work.
It's okay. I'll set up our next call with this. Unfortunate, we reported at the top of the show that John Feinstein, a Washington Post sports writer, of course, best-selling author, he just got let out last year, published his 50th book, Season on the Brink, and he also was a Mad Dog Sports Radio alum. I can't remember how long he worked here, but, fascinating guy. Cantankerous, direct, very smart, very confident. He was a complex figure, and it's very unfortunate, untimely passing at the age of 69. And to comment on Mr. Feinstein is our buddy Hayden in D.C. Hey, Hayden.
Yeah, Patrick, I had to call in and comment. John, he's a legend, obviously, in the sports writing, but he was one of our friends. He took our calls. And for someone like me who March to Madness was my hook. My generation, I've kind of missed that. That Bobby Knight thing was a little too young for that. So I read March to Madness when I was in College Park on our trip to we made our trip to the Final Four. That was my junior year, I guess. And I became hooked, got lucky enough to become a caller into his show, and then became a friend of John. Dustin had mentioned those Tuesday lunches. He would go to this Chinese restaurant with Red and all the legends in the basketball community. Well, the day afterwards on a Wednesday, he'd meet me for pizza.
What?
And,
really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How'd that come about? How'd that come about?
Through the show. He was co-host with Bruce. I was a frequent caller. He was, we butted heads. I'm a Maryland guy. He's a Duke guy. I would take him to task and we would go at it. But he respected my opinion, and we were both local guys in the DC community, and
That's cool.
Yeah.
He went on. As you know, Hayden, he went on with the Junkies for like 15 years.
Yes, yes, he was always a frequent guest of the Junkies.
How long was he on Mad Dog?
I only think about a year or two, but he did other work on the SXM network. He did like a weekend show on the College 87. Is it whatever channel that is? He would do a call-in show there. He wasn't built for it. Don't forget he would also did a show with CBS Radio for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like after he left Mad Dog, that's what happened. CBS launched their own network, CBS Radio, like a national network, and they poached John from Sirius XM, and he was doing that show with. He took a kid from Sirius XM with him. Oh, what's that kid's name?
Well, you would agree. Nobody's smarter than John. Nobody had better opinions, but he was also very sensitive, and he could rub people the wrong way, management and stuff like that. So he was complex to say the least.
Oh, John would send me emails after some of my phone calls if I said something that he didn't appreciate. Yes, I would get those all the time. And he, at the end, my political stance eventually drove a wedge in our friendship. I hate to say.
You know, it's weird. You think about him because of the Post in your area, DMV, but he's a Long Island guy.
Yeah, and he's a huge swimmer. He loved cats, by the way. I want to mention that too. Loved his daughter. He had his young daughter, 3 children.
Yeah.
But he loved that young daughter of his, and he loved cats. And I know he loved, his family, his brother, where he unfortunately his house he passed away. But we were lucky just to have him. And I do want to mention Nika Mule, by the way. I have to throw that in before you hang up on me. You have to throw her as a Nika Mule, the girl from UConn last year. She plays in the WNBA.
Hold on. Let me write this down. Hey, man, seriously, sincerely, I didn't know you guys were friends, and I'm sorry about your loss. That's terrible. Feinstein was – hey, listen, John Feinstein in the sports culture is a legend. 50 books, Good Walk Spoiled, I read. Season on the Brink, I loved.
I've never read Season on the Brink. I know that ESPN made like a movie about it. I should probably pick that up sometime.
Nika Mule. Hold on. Let me just do some research. Nika Mule. Let's see. Hey. What up? Good job, Hayden. Good job with a nice conversation. Ooh. Playing for Seattle? Yeah. What up?
No, don't do that. You swore off that type. You said earlier, you got to be consistent. You said earlier in the show, no more white girls.
She doesn't look totally white. Looks like there's maybe Colombian. All kidding aside, it is very sad and much too young. 69 years old in this day and age is super, super young. So RIP to John Feinstein. Continue with your calls. It's VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio.
With Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson. Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson.
The big guy's bitter. I'll tell you why. But let's sneak in a call, and then we'll get you updated on these college basketball scores. Here's Eric in Idaho. Hey, Eric. How's it going?
Hey, how we doing, fellas?
What's happening?
You know, I feel like we could just all be friends. We got the same interests. We got the same things. None of us can stand Mike from the OC. You know, it's like, man, it's just this cool connection we got, you know. I just got back from Vegas. I just landed, and it was wild because I was walking across from the Aria to the Vidara, and the Vidara is one of the only casinos in Vegas that they don't have a casino floor. There's no gambling. There's no slot machines. There's no alcohol. Well, there's alcohol, but there's no gambling. And I just was looking at these Loyola Marymount players and these San Francisco players, and none of them looked happy and excited to be in Vegas for this tournament. And then you look around at all these, 25-year-old, 30-year-old girls wearing half skirts, like dancing around, jumping around. That's the age group. It's not for 18, 19-year-old kids.
Nailed it.
You know what? That's a good call.
That's a great job, Eric, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. He nailed it. If you go as a first off, UNLV's campus is spread out. It's not like what you think of when you think of a college campus. You know, see what I'm saying? It's a kind of more of a commuting situation. And then he's right. The people that get loose in Vegas are like mid-20s and early 30s. That type of vibe.
No, you're right, because the first
bottle service and promoters, it's creepy.
Yeah, but also like the first time I really went to a casino like on my own where I could drink, it was Biloxi, Mississippi, and I was in college. And guess what? I could barely afford that. This probably isn't the town for college kids just from a financial standpoint where that doesn't make sense. I understand that. Because honestly, for me as an adult,
you and JVT, I was pushing back because I'm like, why do you guys assume that kids just want to go there? If you're too young to really take advantage, and also, by the way, Vegas equals money. You got to have money.
Yeah, no, because
NIL and popping, and their kids are over 21. Maybe they want to come and I don't know, go out.
I'm 40 with a full-time job, and even I don't justify going down to the strip and paying for a drink. So I can't imagine.
Yeah, but you do justify paying for a cleaning lady. And here's the issue. The guy has found himself in a situation. Look, I know his girlfriend, and she's the best, but he's terrified of her. And tomorrow, it is true. And I actually think it's healthy.
No, it's a healthy fear. No, because I've let a lot of walls down, but there's certain walls I can't let down because she'll never come back.
Let's just say she keeps him on his toes.
Yes. And
frankly, as a friend, some people will be like, hey, dude. No, I'm like, nope, you found the right one.
No, you keep me on my toes too.
He needs somebody that's going to say, hey, I don't like the way you eat your food. Hey, you need to clean your apartment. He needs accountability.
Yes, because I'm just not going to do it for me.
She will keep him accountable.
Yeah.
But he was supposed to have a cleaning company come yesterday. They canceled. Now he's got to clean the place before his girl gets there tomorrow himself. That's a bad beat.
So it's been a saga with this company. I pay like a monthly fee. I usually use it, but for like the last 2 months I haven't, and I get a discount by paying the monthly fee because they always cancel on me. They text me they're good to go for the time that we set, and then I get a text like the day of, hey, can you do tomorrow? Hey, can you do this day? Hey, can you do this time? I'm like, no, I put the times in the app where I need you to come. And then, like, I can't have them cleaning the apartment while I'm doing the show in the middle of my living room right now. So I keep getting caught where they're canceling before they're supposed to come. And now I'm going to have to spend my night on my hands and knees scrubbing every little nook and cranny of this apartment. Because if my girlfriend ever found out how I lived when she's not here, there is no chance she would be my girlfriend anymore.
You got to keep that. You got to keep it on point. Hey, give me some updates on these games in progress before we get out of here.
Missouri just took a 2-point lead on Mississippi State. I laid 3 with them. 4 minutes to go. I am bitter if they don't cover this number. I need Missouri in a bad way. Arizona jumped out to a 14-9 lead early on Kansas in the Big 12. In the ACC, we've got Clemson leading SMU very early, 10-6. And then USC, 3 minutes to go in the first in the Big Ten tournament. up on Purdue 33-28. That is a
Hey.
shocker.
It's Musselman time. Remember
It is
Nevada?
Musselman. That's our guy.
And he had great runs with Arkansas in the
Yeah,
tournament.
he had great runs with Reno. I mean, the Martin twins. We were in Vegas for that one.
Nova and UConn coming up. You got
I
anything?
bet Nova, by the way. I took 7. Nova was on the bubble. I don't think they really are anymore, but maybe a couple wins here in the tournament could get them there. So I took Villanova because I think they have a chance to stroke the ball well from 3 here. And if they're hitting those shots, they have a chance to not just cover but win this game.
You would be proud of me. I'm going to meet a friend for a beer after this.
I am so happy for you to do public things, but I will say this. When we went out late that one night, I was exhausted the next day. So I think you were also right. Doing things on school nights, still not for me.
No. Listen, I'm not happy about going out tonight. I just told my friend I would. So,
Yeah, this is the same talk I have with myself in about an hour when I'm eating a salad. I don't want to eat the
Exactly.
salad, but I need to do it.
Isaiah's, thank you. Hey, you know who else is back there in New York? Old double text, Jacob. Donk. Ryan, good job. Thank you to all our guests. I can't remember your names. A lot of college basketball tomorrow. Hit us up on YouTube. Subscribe. Thumbs up. Algo. VSiN Live. Mad Dog Sports Radio.
This is VSiN Live on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Patrick Maher and Dustin Swedelson.